Welcome back, fellow seekers of the shadows. You've tuned into Stories of Crime, the place where the veil between the mundane and the monstrous is brutally ripped away. Tonight, we aren't just reading a report. We are opening a file, marked top priority, tucked away in the darkest corner of the archives. We're going to step across that chalk line and peer into the void, where human nature meets its most terrifying extremes. In this hour, the street lights flicker, the shadows deepen, and the truth is often far more chilling than any fiction you could invent. Forget the heroes. Tonight, we focus on the villains. On the motives that curdle the blood, and the consequences that echo forever. So, dim the lights. Lock your doors. Take a deep, steadying breath, because once the story begins, there's no turning back. This is Stories of Crime. And the case we're unfolding tonight is The Green Mummy. Look. Sound of subtle, eerie, almost whispering wind, distant and cold, slowly fading in, then holding at a very low, sustained level, barely perceptible but creating an undeniable chill. Welcome, dear listener, to a journey into shadows and secrets, a realm where ancient mysteries intertwine with modern-day horrors. Prepare yourself, for the story we are about to unfold begins not with a gentle introduction, but with a sudden, brutal shock. Imagine, if you will, a dimly lit university office, stacks of esoteric texts precariously piled on every surface, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten knowledge. It's late, the campus is quiet, save for the incessant, almost mournful moan of the wind outside, rattling a loose pane in the window. And then, there it is. The discovery that shatters the tranquility and plunges everything into an abyss of chilling uncertainty. Our tale commences, as many do, with a profound absence, a void that speaks volumes more than any presence ever could. Picture the esteemed Professor Alastair Finch, a man whose life was dedicated to unearthing the forgotten whispers of antiquity, a brilliant mind, now tragically silenced. He was found, not merely deceased, but brutally murdered, amidst the very artifacts he so passionately studied. His office, a sanctuary of scholarship, transformed into a scene of unspeakable violence, a canvas splashed with the crimson stain of life violently extinguished. But the horror of his demise, as shocking as it was, pales in comparison to the enigma that truly baffled investigators and sent shivers down the spines of anyone who dared to contemplate it. For in that blood-soaked chamber, amidst the chaos and the profound stillness of death, one invaluable, utterly unique artifact was conspicuously missing. Vanished. Gone without a trace. The legendary Green Mummy. A relic whispered about in hushed tones, rumored to possess powers beyond human comprehension, an object whose very existence defied conventional archaeological understanding, its emerald hue an unsettling anomaly in the dusty annals of history. This, my friends, is the very essence of a compelling hook, isn't it? To grab your attention, to seize your imagination, to refuse to let go until every last secret is laid bare. We don't ease into the narrative with pleasantries, we thrust you headfirst into the abyss, into the heart of a mystery that is both grisly and utterly intriguing. A murdered professor, a custodian of ancient secrets, and the simultaneous disappearance of an artifact so unusual, so profoundly out of place, that it immediately conjures images of ancient curses, illicit dealings, and perhaps, something far more sinister, something otherworldly. This isn't just a crime, it's a transgression against history, against the natural order, an affront to everything rational. Who would commit such an act, and more importantly, why? What dark forces would covet something so strange, so unsettling, as a green mummy? These are the questions, dear listener, that we wish to ignite in your mind from the very first breath of this story, to make you lean closer, to compel you to seek the answers alongside us. Now, let's delve a little deeper into the artistry and the psychology behind crafting such an irresistible opening, dissecting the elements that work in concert to ensnare your attention and draw you into the narrative vortex. We've just experienced the profound impact of not merely what is said, but how it is conveyed, and the subtle, yet potent, environmental cues that accompany it. First, consider the power of sound, specifically the choice to play those eerie, ambient wind sounds to set a mysterious mood. Can you still feel that subtle chill it evokes, even now as I discuss it? It's not accidental, not merely background noise. This a deliberate artistic choice, carefully calibrated to prepare your subconscious for the unfolding drama. Allow me to offer a real-world storytelling example to illuminate this point. Think back to the opening scenes of classic horror films, or even sophisticated PS. Third, consider layering. Often, an eerie wind isn't just one sound file, it might be several: a low, sustained drone, a higher-pitched whistling element, and perhaps a subtle gust or two, all mixed together to create a richer, more complex texture that feels more authentic and less synthetic. This layering adds depth and realism, making the soundscape more immersive. And finally, the fade-out must be as artful as the fade-in, a gradual departure that leaves a lingering echo in the listener's mind, a subtle residue of the established mood. The goal is to create an auditory illusion that transports you, makes you feel the cold air, hear the distant moan, and truly feel the mystery unfolding around you, rather than just hearing about it. Moving on to our second crucial element, and one that I trust you've noticed in my delivery, is the instruction to speak in a hushed, conspiratorial tone to draw the listener in. Didn't you find yourself leaning in just a fraction, perhaps adjusting your headphones, when I first whispered about the murdered professor and the missing mummy? That, dear listener, is precisely the effect we aim to achieve. Let's explore this with another compelling example. Imagine the opening lines of a classic film noir, perhaps delivered by a gruff, world-weary private detective narrating his own grim story. It was a dark and stormy night. She walked into my office like she owned the place, a dame with a past as tangled as a ball of yarn, and a future that looked just as messy. The voice isn't shouting, it's a low rumble, a confidant sharing a secret, painting a picture with words, drawing you into his cynical world. Or consider the quiet, intimate delivery of a seasoned storyteller around a flickering campfire, recounting a ghostly legend. The voice drops, becomes hushed, almost a whisper, as if the very act of speaking too loudly might awaken whatever spectral entity they are describing. The storyteller isn't performing, they're sharing something precious, something forbidden, something that binds them to the audience in a moment of shared vulnerability and suspense. This conspiratorial tone creates an immediate, almost primal connection, transforming the passive act of listening into an active participation in a shared secret. It's the difference between being lectured and being invited into a clandestine meeting. From a psychological standpoint, the power of a hushed, conspiratorial tone is immense. It leverages several deep-seated human tendencies. Firstly, it creates an immediate sense of intimacy. When someone lowers their voice and speaks softly, it signals a desire for closeness, an invitation to a private space, making the listener feel singled out, chosen, special. We perceive this as a gesture of trust, a sharing of confidential information that isn't meant for everyone. This fostered intimacy bypasses the usual barriers of skepticism and immediately establishes a rapport, making the listener more receptive to the narrative. Secondly, it activates our inherent curiosity. When we hear something whispered, our immediate instinct is to strain to hear it more clearly, to uncover the hidden message. This effort itself deepens engagement. It suggests that what is being said is important, perhaps dangerous, or even scandalous, and certainly not something to be openly broadcast. This scarcity of information, the feeling that it's a secret, makes it inherently more valuable and alluring. Thirdly, it creates a sense of shared experience, almost a complicity. By sharing a secret, even a fictional one, the narrator and listener become united against the outside world that is not privy to this information. This shared secret fosters a powerful bond, transforming the listener from an audience member into an active participant, an accomplice in the unfolding mystery. The hushed tone, in essence, is an invitation to lean in, to trust, and to become deeply invested, creating a powerful emotional anchor for the story. It whispers, "Come closer, I have something important, something astonishing, to tell you." It effectively says, "You thought that was intense? Just wait." Practically applying this involves careful selection and precise timing. The type of musical sting is crucial. For The Green Mummy, it wouldn't be a light, whimsical chime, but something that resonates with the mystery and the initial shock, perhaps a deep, resonant cello note struck hard and then abruptly cut, or a sharp, dissonant orchestral chord that echoes the unease. It might even incorporate a subtle percussive element, like a sharp, sudden beat, to provide that definitive snap. The duration of the sting is also critical. It must be brief, impactful, and decisively cut off, rather than fading out. A lingering sting loses its power. Its volume needs to be significantly higher than the preceding ambient sounds and the hushed narration, creating a stark contrast that ensures its impact. It needs to stand out. And finally, the timing of its placement is paramount. It must land precisely at the moment of peak tension or curiosity after the revelation of the missing mummy, providing that final, unforgettable punch that leaves the listener gasping, ready for the main event. It is the final flourish, the emphatic period at the end of a powerful opening statement, designed to leave an indelible mark and propel you seamlessly into the deeper layers of our unfolding mystery. So, my dear listeners, we have traversed the landscape of the perfect audiobook hook, dissecting its crucial components. We've experienced the way subtle, eerie ambient wind sounds don't just create atmosphere, but psychologically prime our minds for mystery and unease, subtly infiltrating our subconscious with a sense of the unknown. We've understood the intimate, captivating power of a hushed, conspiratorial tone, a vocal caress that draws you into a shared secret, fostering trust and undeniable curiosity. And we've felt the decisive, energizing jolt of a sharp musical sting, acting as a powerful punctuation mark, snapping you from one phase of the narrative to the next, maintaining momentum and amplifying anticipation. Together, these elements, the chilling premise of a murdered scholar and a vanished, uncanny artifact, expertly underscored by carefully chosen sound design, delivered with an intimate vocal presence, and punctuated by a precise sonic cue, form an irresistible gravitational pull. They don't just tell you a story, they immerse you in an experience, a journey where every sense is engaged, every emotion stirred. This is how we ensure that from the very first moments, you are not just a listener, but an active participant, an eager companion ready to embark on this thrilling, terrifying adventure with us. As the echoes of that final sting begin to fade, let us prepare to peel back the layers of this profound enigma. The stage is set, the mood established, and your curiosity, I trust, is now fully piqued. The story of the Green Mummy truly begins now. We invite you to step further into the shadows, into the heart of a mystery that spans centuries, defies logic, and threatens to unravel the very fabric of reality. Join us, won't you, as we officially begin our chilling exploration into the dark secrets unearthed by Professor Finch, and the terrifying implications of his gruesome end and the disappearance of that emerald anomaly. Are you ready to discover what secrets the Green Mummy truly holds? Let the full introduction unfold. Fade out winds sound completely. Fade in sharp, powerful musical sting, then transition immediately to the main audiobook introduction music. Welcome, dear listener, to a journey into shadows and secrets, a realm where ancient mysteries intertwine with modern-day horrors. Prepare yourself, for the story we are about to unfold begins not with a gentle introduction, but with a sudden, brutal shock. Imagine, if you will, a dimly lit university office, stacks of esoteric texts precariously piled on every surface, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten knowledge. It's late, the campus is quiet, save for the incessant, almost mournful moan. In these instances, the ambient sound isn't just accompaniment, it's a character in itself, whispering warnings, heightening tension, and making the very air around you feel thick with foreboding. Even in literature, a skilled writer will describe the soundscape: the creaking house, the howling wind, the distant thunder, to immerse the reader and set the scene. When adapted for audio, these descriptions are translated into actual oral experiences, amplifying their power exponentially and making the imagined world tangibly real. In the context of The Green Mummy, that whispering, distant wind immediately suggests desolation, isolation, and perhaps the ancient, restless spirits of the past stirring. It's a primal sound, one that evokes images of windswept ruins, forgotten tombs, and the relentless march of time, eroding all that stands in its path. It can even suggest the sound of breath, or a ghostly sigh, subtly hinting at something unseen, something just beyond the veil of perception, an almost ethereal presence that predates humanity. The very air itself seems to be a carrier of secrets, an unseen force bearing witness to unspeakable acts, hinting at the true depth of the historical and mystical elements within our story. It acts as a prologue, an auditory overture to the dark symphony that is about to begin. From a psychological perspective, why does this matter so profoundly? Sound, you see, bypasses the rational mind in ways that visual input or even direct narrative exposition cannot always achieve. It taps directly into our limbic system, the most ancient part of our brain, responsible for emotions, memory, and survival instincts. The human ear is constantly vigilant, even during sleep, a legacy from our evolutionary past when being alert to subtle sounds: a predator's rustle in the leaves, the shifting of earth before a landslide was a matter of life or death. We are wired to respond to auditory cues before we even consciously register them. When we hear eerie, unfamiliar ambient sounds, especially those associated with isolation or the unknown like distant wind, our brains immediately register a sense of unease, a low-level alert. It creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a feeling that something is out of place, even if we can't consciously identify it. This dissonance sparks curiosity and a mild sense of threat, compelling us to pay closer attention, to seek resolution, to brace ourselves for what might come next. The subtle, sustained nature of the wind sound prevents it from being a jarring jump scare, which can sometimes alienate listeners by feeling cheap or unearned. Instead, it's an insidious creeping dread, seeping into your awareness slowly, painting the backdrop of your imagination with shades of gray and unsettling anticipation. It primes your mind for mystery, for the supernatural, for something just beyond the mundane, effectively establishing the genre and tone of our narrative before a single plot point is explicitly stated. It's an auditory embrace of the unknown, inviting you to step into its chilling presence and surrender to the unfolding enigma. This subliminal influence of sound is incredibly powerful because it operates below the threshold of conscious thought, shaping our emotional state and our perception of the narrative without us even realizing it, making the experience far more immersive and impactful. The wind isn't just a sound, it's a feeling, a premonition, a subtle whisper of the ancient world trying to break through into the present. So, how do we practically apply this understanding in crafting an audiobook experience that truly resonates with the listener? For an audio producer, the steps are meticulous and deliberate, requiring a keen ear and an understanding of acoustic psychology. First, it involves careful selection of the right kind of wind sound. Is it a gentle breeze that rustles leaves, suggesting a quiet, perhaps melancholic mystery? Or is it a harsh, howling gale that speaks of fury and danger, embodying a more aggressive threat? For the Green Mum, this fostered intimacy bypasses the usual barriers of skepticism and immediately establishes a rapport, making the listener more receptive to the narrative because they feel personally invested. Secondly, it activates our inherent curiosity. When we hear something whispered, our immediate instinct is to strain to hear it more clearly, to lean in, to uncover the hidden message. This physical and mental effort itself deepens engagement and commitment to the story. It suggests that what is being said is important, perhaps dangerous, or even scandalous, and certainly not something to be openly broadcast. This scarcity of information, the feeling that it's a secret, makes it inherently more valuable and alluring, tapping into our innate desire to know what others don't. Thirdly, it creates a sense of shared experience, almost a complicity. By sharing a secret, even a fictional one, the narrator and listener become united against the outside world that is not privy to this information. This shared secret fosters a powerful bond, transforming the listener from an audience member into an active participant, an accomplice in the unfolding mystery. The hushed tone, in essence, is an invitation to lean in, to trust, and to become deeply invested, creating a powerful emotional anchor for the story. It whispers, "Come closer, I have something important, something astonishing, to tell you," making the revelation feel profoundly personal and exclusive, thereby elevating its perceived significance. The absence of a booming, theatrical voice strips away any pretense, leaving only the raw, compelling truth of the situation to be quietly absorbed. For practical application, a voice actor or narrator wishing to embody this tone must employ a nuanced range of vocal techniques, understanding that hushed does not equate to weak or inaudible. It's about control and intention. Firstly, breath control is paramount. A hushed tone often involves more controlled exhalation, a slightly softer attack on consonants, and a smoother flow of vowels, creating a breathier, more intimate sound that feels as if the words are delivered on a gentle current of air. Secondly, volume modulation is key. The voice should be consistently low, but capable of subtle shifts to emphasize certain words or phrases, giving them added weight without breaking the overall intimate atmosphere. Think of it as a quiet intensity rather than a monotonous whisper. It's a focused, deliberate quietude. Thirdly, pacing becomes incredibly important. A conspiratorial tone often benefits from a slightly slower, more deliberate pace, allowing each word to sink in, giving the listener time to absorb the implications of the secret being shared. Pauses, even brief ones, can heighten the suspense and draw the listener further into the moment, creating space for their own imagination to fill in the unspoken gaps. Fourthly, consider the subtle inclusion of a slight vocal fry or a gentle, almost imperceptible huskiness in the voice. This can add texture and an element of gravitas or weariness, making the voice feel more authentic, more lived in, and the secret more profound, as if it carries the weight of significant experience. Lastly, and perhaps most crucially, is the internal intention. The narrator must genuinely feel as if they are sharing a secret, confiding in a trusted individual. This internal belief translates into a vocal delivery that is authentic, compelling, and utterly captivating, making the listener feel as if they are the only person in the world being told this extraordinary tale, fostering an almost sacred connection. It's a performance that doesn't just mimic quietness but embodies the very essence of a confidence shared, a secret entrusted. Finally, let's turn our attention to the concluding element of this powerful hook, ending with a sharp musical sting to transition to the main introduction. Did you feel that jolt, that sudden punctuation mark that snapped you from the lingering dread of the mummy into the anticipation of what's next? That, my friends, is the. It needs to stand out as a definitive statement. And finally, the timing of its placement is paramount. It must land precisely at the moment of peak tension or curiosity after the revelation of the missing mummy, providing that final, unforgettable punch that leaves the listener gasping, ready for the main event. It is the final flourish, the emphatic period at the end of a powerful opening statement, designed to leave an indelible mark and propel you seamlessly into the deeper layers of our unfolding mystery, a sonic signature for the journey ahead. So, my dear listeners, we have traversed the landscape of the perfect audiobook hook, dissecting its crucial components with the precision of an archaeologist uncovering ancient truths. We've experienced the way subtle, eerie ambient wind sounds don't just create atmosphere, but psychologically prime our minds for mystery and unease, subtly infiltrating our subconscious with a sense of the unknown, preparing us for the extraordinary. We've understood the intimate, captivating power of a hushed, conspiratorial tone, a vocal caress that draws you into a shared secret, fostering trust and undeniable curiosity, making you feel personally invited into the narrative. And we've felt the decisive, energizing jolt of a sharp musical sting, acting as a powerful punctuation mark, snapping you from one phase of the narrative to the next, maintaining momentum and amplifying anticipation for what lies ahead. Together, these elements, the chilling premise of a murdered scholar and a vanished, uncanny artifact, expertly underscored by carefully chosen sound design, delivered with an intimate vocal presence, and punctuated by a precise sonic cue form an irresistible gravitational pull. They don't just tell you a story, they immerse you in an experience, a journey where every sense is engaged, every emotion stirred. This is how we ensure that from the very first moments, you are not just a listener, but an active participant, an eager companion ready to embark on this thrilling, terrifying adventure with us, fully invested in every twist and turn. As the echoes of that final sting begin to fade, let us prepare to peel back the layers of this profound enigma. The stage is set, the mood established, and your curiosity, I trust, is now fully piqued, sharpened to a fine edge. The story of the Green Mummy truly begins now. We invite you to step further into the shadows, into the heart of a mystery that spans centuries, defies logic, and threatens to unravel the very fabric of reality. Join us, won't you, as we officially begin our chilling exploration into the dark secrets unearthed by Professor Finch, and the terrifying implications of his gruesome end and the disappearance of that emerald anomaly. Are you ready to discover what secrets the Green Mummy truly holds? Let the full introduction unfold, and may your journey be as captivating as it is unsettling. Fade out winds sound completely. Fade in sharp, powerful musical sting, then transition immediately to the main audiobook introduction music. Intro. Welcome, dear listener, to a journey that promises to transport you far from the hustle and bustle of your present moment, deep into a bygone era, and right into the very heart of a most intriguing, unsettling, and utterly captivating mystery. My voice will be your constant companion, your trusted guide, your confidant, as we embark upon the unfolding narrative of Fergus Hume's timeless classic, The Green Mummy. I am your narrator, and I consider it an absolute privilege, indeed a true delight, to share this enthralling tale with you. Now, before we plunge headfirst into the very first chapter, allowing the initial tendrils of suspense to coil around our imaginations, let's take a brief but significant moment, shall we, to truly settle in, to prepare ourselves for the immersive experience that lies ahead. This isn't merely a passive listening exercise, you see. No, this is an invitation, an open door into a meticulously crafted world, a world rich with shadowy characters, perplexing clues, and an atmosphere thick with an almost palpable sense of foreboding. It's an opportunity to truly lean in, to engage all your senses, and to let your mind wander freely within the confines of a story that demands, and richly rewards, your full attention. The Green Mummy is not a fleeting diversion, it's an adventure of considerable scope and depth, spanning approximately 282 minutes, or just over 4.5 hours, of dedicated, uninterrupted listening. 282 minutes. That's a substantial chunk of time, isn't it? It's more than just a passing moment in your busy day. It's a generous commitment, an opportunity to truly lose yourself, to disconnect from the incessant demands of the modern world and surrender to the slow, deliberate unraveling of a compelling mystery penned by a genuine master of the genre. Think of it not as a challenge, but as a precious gift of time, time to ponder, time to speculate, time to become absolutely saturated in a narrative that will demand your keen attention, your critical thinking, and certainly, your innate sense of wonder. Will you accept this gift? I sincerely hope so, for the rewards are truly bountiful. This particular work, The Green Mummy, hails from a pivotal period when the mystery novel was truly coming into its own, establishing the very tropes, narrative structures, and character archetypes that continue to captivate readers and listeners to this very day. Fergus Hume, though perhaps not as universally recognized today as an Arthur Conan Doyle or an Agatha Christie, names that have become synonymous with the genre, was, in fact, an extraordinarily popular and incredibly prolific author in his prime. Indeed, his groundbreaking novel, The Mystery of a Hansom Cab, published in 1886, achieved a staggering level of success, actually outselling even Conan Doyle's very first Sherlock Holmes novel, A Study in Scarlet. Can you imagine the buzz that must have created? This fact alone stands as a powerful testament to Hume's formidable storytelling prowess, his intuitive understanding of human psychology, and his uncanny ability to weave intricate, suspenseful webs that ensnared the public imagination. And it is this very spirit of classic, intricate, and deeply human mystery that we are about to delve into with The Green Mummy. We are stepping back into an era where the intellectual puzzle was paramount, where the satisfaction came from the gradual, often painstaking, revelation of truth amidst a labyrinth of deceit. What does it truly mean, then, to engage with a classic mystery, especially one from this golden age of detective fiction, you might ask? It means embracing a certain elegance in the prose, a more deliberate and nuanced pace in the plotting, and a profound, almost philosophical, emphasis on deduction, on the subtle interplay of evidence, and on the intricate depths of character psychology, often over overt, adrenaline-fueled action. It means we will encounter a vibrant cast of characters who, while undeniably products of their. Truly, I am delighted you've chosen to spend these upcoming hours with me, with the enduring literary legacy of Fergus Hume, and, of course, with the enigmatic figure that is the mysterious Green Mummy. Think of this as more than just pressing play on an audio file. Envision it, if you will, as stepping across a welcoming threshold, much like entering a cozy, dimly lit study on a blustery evening, where a fire crackles merrily in the hearth, perhaps a faint aroma of old books and simmering tea lingers in the air, and a fascinating, spine-tingling story awaits to be intimately shared between trusted friends. My aim, throughout our shared time, is to be far more than just a voice delivering words. I aspire to be your trusted companion, your insightful guide, perhaps even a fellow armchair detective, as we navigate the intricate twists and unexpected turns of this compelling narrative together. We are embarking on this journey side by side, each of us experiencing the unfolding events, each of us pondering the perplexing questions that Hume so expertly poses. Let me offer a real-world storytelling example to illustrate this sense of connection. Consider the comforting, almost familial, feeling you get when a beloved podcast host, whose voice has become a familiar and truly comforting presence in your weekly routine, begins a new episode with a personal, heartfelt greeting. Perhaps they say something genuinely warm, like, "Welcome back, my friends. It's so good to have you joining me again as we delve into another fascinating corner of history," or pull up a chair, grab your favorite beverage, make yourself thoroughly at home, because we've got quite the story to unpack today, and I'm so glad you're here for it. That personal touch, that genuine sense of direct address, makes you, the listener, feel not just observed, but actively included, deeply valued, and genuinely anticipated. It's an open invitation, not a mere command. It establishes an immediate, palpable rapport, effortlessly bridging the seemingly vast gap between speaker and audience. We're not strangers embarking on separate paths, we're partners, fellow travelers on this thrilling narrative expedition. This initial warmth sets the entire tone for what is to follow. From a psychological perspective, a warm welcome is incredibly potent because it taps into fundamental human needs for connection, for belonging, and for emotional safety. When we are greeted warmly and genuinely, our brain often responds by releasing feel-good neurochemicals, like oxytocin, which is known to foster trust, reduce feelings of isolation, and diminish any lurking apprehension. It signals a space of safety and acceptance, a mental zone where one can relax and truly be present. In the unique context of an audiobook, where the relationship between narrator and listener is entirely auditory and imagined, this initial comfort is absolutely paramount. If a listener feels welcomed and immediately at ease, they are far more likely to relax their mental defenses, to lower their guard, and to open themselves fully, both emotionally and intellectually, to the story being told. Conversely, a cold, detached, or impersonal opening can inadvertently create a psychological barrier, making it significantly harder for the listener to invest themselves deeply, either emotionally or intellectually. A warm welcome, therefore, subtly primes the listener for an overwhelmingly positive experience, setting a foundational layer of rapport upon which the entire narrative can effectively and powerfully build. It gently, yet firmly, communicates, "You are in good hands here, prepare to truly enjoy this." It also helps to reduce any initial cognitive load by reassuring the listener that they don't need to be wary or scrutinizing, they can simply listen, absorb, and surrender to the unfolding drama. So, what does all of this mean for you, dear listener, in a practical sense? My sincere suggestion is to allow yourself the grace of a genuine moment. Before the very first word of the story itself spills into your ears. This, precisely, is the fertile, intriguing ground from which the Green Mummy springs its unsettling narrative. It's the very essence of the disruption we are about to witness. The disruption comes not from a local quarrel over land boundaries, or a petty property dispute, or even a romantic entanglement that has gone awry within the village itself. No, it stems from something far more primordial, something that predates even the oldest, gnarled oak tree in the village churchyard, something that has slumbered for millennia. It arrives in the striking form of an ancient Egyptian artifact, a mummy, yes, but one that is strangely, ominously, unnervingly, green. This isn't just a dusty museum piece, you understand, a curiosity behind glass in some sterile exhibition hall. No, this is a relic, a powerful vessel, perhaps, of a truly ancient curse, a haunting whisper of old gods and forgotten, powerful rituals, brought forth from the sun-baked sands of time into the quietude of modern English life. It's the ultimate fish out of water story, isn't it? The stark, irreconcilable clash of civilizations, of diametrically opposed belief systems, of utterly different temporal realities, all contained within the startling and peculiar presence of this one peculiar, unnervingly colored artifact. The green mummy isn't merely an object, it's a profound harbinger, a potent catalyst for chaos, a literal transplant from a world of sun-drenched pyramids and mystical, arcane rites to a landscape characterized by gray, often drizzly, skies and measured Anglican restraint. And its presence, as you might well imagine, unleashes a cascade of events that will irrevocably alter the lives of everyone in its immediate orbit, shaking the very foundations of their serene, predictable existence. How could it not? Let's consider a real-world storytelling example to fully grasp the unsettling power of this setup. Think of the spine-chilling effectiveness of stories like M.R. James's Ghost Tales, where a scholarly, rational individual inadvertently unearths an ancient, malevolent force in a seemingly innocuous setting. Or perhaps, imagine the opening scenes of countless classic horror films where an unsuspecting, wholesome family moves into an old, charming house, only to gradually uncover a dark, forgotten history buried within its very walls. A prime and brilliant example that comes to mind is the iconic The Wicker Man, where a devoutly Christian police sergeant investigates a missing girl on a remote Scottish island, only to discover a vibrant, yet utterly unsettling pagan community whose deeply ingrained beliefs and practices directly, and horrifyingly, clash with his own rigid worldview. The genius in these narratives lies precisely in establishing a familiar, comforting, and seemingly secure world, and then introducing an alien, terrifying, and often inexplicable element that utterly shatters its tranquility. Another excellent, if less overtly supernatural, example is the long-running Midsomer Murders television series, which brilliantly portrays idyllic, picture-postcard English villages as unexpected hotbeds of gruesome crime and dark, carefully concealed secrets, constantly contrasting the beautiful, serene scenery with the sinister human drama seething beneath. It is this stark, immediate contrast that generates immense narrative tension. The more peaceful, predictable, and reassuring the initial setting, the more impactful, shocking, and profoundly unsettling the subsequent disruption inevitably becomes. The psychological impact of this deliberate juxtaposition, the quiet, seemingly impenetrable English village against the ancient, profoundly disrupting curse, is profoundly effective and deeply resonant. Humans are, at our core, creatures of habit and comfort. We inherently seek order, predictability, and, above all, safety in our surroundings. When a familiar, seemingly secure environment is suddenly infiltrated by something deeply unsettling, something inexplicable, something truly alien, it triggers a powerful sense of primal unease. My voice, I sincerely hope, will convey not just the bare bones of the plot, but also the rich, underlying atmosphere, the subtle emotional currents, and the profound intellectual challenges inherent in Hume's masterful writing. I aim to infuse the narration with a sense of genuine wonder, a touch of gentle, analytical skepticism, and an overarching warmth that makes our shared exploration feel like a comfortable, stimulating conversation between equals, rather than a formal, detached lecture. To give you a real-world storytelling example of this dynamic, imagine sitting across from a truly brilliant literary professor, one who is not just reciting dry facts about a novel, but is passionately dissecting its multifaceted themes, eloquently pointing out the sheer cleverness of the author's narrative choices, and actively inviting you to engage in a lively, thought-provoking discussion. They might lean forward and say, with genuine enthusiasm, "Notice here, how the author so subtly plants a seed of doubt. What do you think that implies, truly, about the character's deeper, perhaps hidden, intentions? Or, isn't it utterly fascinating how this seemingly minor detail, introduced almost casually in Chapter 2, suddenly becomes absolutely crucial much later on, unlocking an entirely new layer of understanding?" This professor isn't just delivering information, they're expertly guiding your interpretation, actively encouraging your critical thinking, and openly sharing their own genuine enthusiasm and intellectual curiosity for the text. They humanize the often academic experience, making it profoundly relatable, deeply engaging, and personally enriching. Or perhaps, consider a compelling true crime podcast host who, while meticulously presenting the often grim facts of a complex case, also allows their profound empathy for the victims, their shared frustration with perceived injustice, or their awe at the depths of human depravity to come through in their voice, making the listener feel like a trusted confidant, privy to their deeply personal reflections on the events. This establishes a profound sense of shared understanding. The establishment of a humanized, subtly investigative narrator persona is psychologically crucial because it transforms the listening experience from a purely passive reception of information into an active, collaborative, and deeply intellectual endeavor. Humans are naturally inclined towards social interaction and shared experiences. It's a fundamental aspect of our makeup. A narrator who expresses genuine curiosity, heartfelt empathy, or even a degree of honest bewilderment, mirrors the listener's own potential reactions, thereby validating their feelings and thoughts. This dynamic creates a powerful parasocial relationship, where the listener feels a genuine, almost personal connection to the narrator, perceiving them as a trusted, intelligent, and profoundly relatable companion rather than a detached, robotic voice. This deep connection significantly enhances engagement, boosts sustained attention, and deepens emotional investment in the unfolding story. When the narrator acts as an investigator, gently prodding, questioning, and highlighting, it subtly yet powerfully encourages the listener to do precisely the same, fostering a more active, inquisitive, and immersive form of listening. It taps directly into our inherent human desire to solve puzzles, to understand the intricate nuances of human nature, and to feel competently guided by someone who is knowledgeable yet entirely approachable. It makes the entire journey feel less solitary and more like a shared, exciting adventure. We feel like we're solving the mystery with someone, not merely observing it from a distance. So, my heartfelt invitation to you, as we delve deeper into the captivating narrative of The Green Mummy, is to fully embrace this collaborative spirit. Don't be afraid to form your own theories, to question the characters' actions, or even to silently challenge my interpretations, or indeed, the author's seemingly. Main chapters, 1 to 6. The Discovery. Welcome, dear listener, to the third chapter of The Green Mummy, a tale where ancient mysteries collide with modern obsessions, and the hallowed halls of academia become the stage for a chilling discovery. As we delve into the discovery, prepare yourselves for a journey into the heart of an unfolding enigma, one that begins with a man consumed by an idea and culminates in an act of unthinkable violence. Our story, for this segment, is anchored by a trifecta of pivotal events: Professor Braddock's spiraling obsession, the dramatic arrival of a peculiar Peruvian mummy, and the shocking, brutal murder that casts a long shadow over everything. These elements don't merely propel the plot forward, they intertwine to create a tapestry of suspense and psychological intrigue, setting the stage for the thrilling revelations to come. Imagine, if you will, the venerable Professor Alistair Braddock. His name, whispered in the hushed corridors of the British Museum and university lecture halls alike, typically evoked a mixture of admiration and bewilderment. He was, to put it mildly, a titan in the field of Egyptology, a man whose mind was a veritable archive of ancient civilizations. Yet, with that brilliance came an eccentric intensity, a singular focus that bordered on the monomaniacal. For years, Professor Braddock had been chasing a whisper, a footnote in an obscure text, a tantalizing hint of a mummy unlike any other. Not Egyptian, as was his primary domain, but Peruvian. A mummy, legend claimed, imbued with an otherworldly hue, a distinct, vibrant green, unlike the solemn browns and grays typically associated with ancient preservation. This wasn't merely an academic pursuit for Braddock, it was a crusade, a personal quest that had consumed his waking thoughts and infiltrated his very dreams. His colleagues often spoke of a distant look in his eyes, a restless energy that suggested his mind was always centuries away, grappling with long-lost secrets. He was a man possessed, driven not by fame or fortune, but by the insatiable hunger for unique knowledge, the thrill of unearthing a truth no one else had yet grasped. His laboratory, a sprawling, cavernous space nestled deep within the museum's older, less frequented wing, was a testament to his single-minded devotion. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the grime-streaked windows, illuminating shelves overflowing with ancient scrolls, pottery shards, and the silent, watchful gaze of countless obsidian idols. The air itself seemed heavy with the scent of old paper, preservative chemicals, and the faint, sweet decay of time. Here, amidst the organized chaos, Braddock spent countless hours, his figure hunched over magnifying glasses, his fingers tracing faded hieroglyphs, always seeking that one elusive piece of the puzzle. The green mummy was his holy grail, the culmination of years of tireless research and boundless speculation. He had moved heaven and earth, navigating bureaucratic labyrinthine passages and securing improbable funding, all to bring this one artifact, this rumored marvel, from the remote highlands of Peru to the heart of London. The anticipation, therefore, as the day of its arrival dawned, was a palpable force, vibrating through the very air around him, making his hands tremble slightly as he adjusted his spectacles. Then came the day. A heavy, unmarked wooden crate, secured with formidable steel bands, was slowly maneuvered into his laboratory. The scent of ancient wood, mixed with something indefinable, something dry and earthy, filled the room. It was immense, imposing, a silent promise of the wonders, or perhaps horrors, it contained. Braddock oversaw its careful placement, his eyes never leaving its rough-hewn surface. Each creak of the floorboards under its immense weight, each grunt from the movers, seemed to resonate deeply within him. He dismissed the porters with an uncharacteristically curt wave, his impatience barely contained. This was his moment, his alone. With a geologist's hammer and a pry bar, he began the painstaking process of opening the crate. Splinters flew, nails shrieked as they were wrenched from their ancient moorings. He worked with a feverish intensity, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps, the only sound in the otherwise hushed laboratory. Finally, with a protesting groan, the lid was lifted, revealing not the mummy directly, but layers of protective sacking, thick canvas, and expertly woven reeds. Consider Professor Braddock. How did I try to portray him vocally in your mind's ear? He was a man consumed, a mind constantly worrying, often a step ahead of those around him, yet perhaps a little detached from everyday realities. To convey this, a narrator might adopt a slightly higher pitch when quoting his direct speech, a quicker cadence, perhaps a touch of breathiness or an almost manic energy in the voice, reflecting his singular, almost frantic obsession. When he whispers, "My God, it's real," that whisper should carry the weight of years of fervent hope, a tremor of triumph and disbelief. This isn't about caricature, mind you, but about subtle shifts that paint a vivid picture. This vocal texture helps us hear his brilliance, yes, but also his growing detachment, his almost childlike wonder in the face of discovery. He was a man for whom the pursuit of knowledge was everything, and his voice would reflect that singular focus, perhaps rising in excitement, or dropping to a conspiratorial hush as he pondered an ancient secret. It's not just about what he says, but how the words are delivered, imbued with his unique mental landscape. Now, contrast this with Hope, our steady, analytical protagonist, who will soon step into this narrative maelstrom. Hope's voice, when she speaks, should inherently convey a sense of calm resilience, perhaps a slightly lower, more measured tone, a steady rhythm that speaks to her logical approach and her grounding presence amidst the chaos. Her sentences would flow with a natural, perhaps slightly slower pace, allowing her observations to land with gravitas and clarity. She is the anchor, the one who will strive to make sense of the irrational, to bring order to the unfolding pandemonium. Her voice would be reassuring, thoughtful, reflecting her internal process of careful observation and deduction. Do you see how these vocal choices, though subtle, create an immediate, almost unconscious, understanding of character dynamics? They provide an auditory blueprint for their personalities and their roles in the narrative, allowing us to intuitively grasp who they are without needing explicit descriptions every time they speak. As a real-world storytelling example, think of any animated film you've enjoyed, perhaps something like The Lord of the Rings audiobooks, where a single narrator, like Rob Inglis or Andy Serkis, performs dozens of characters. Each character, from the wizened Gandalf to the mischievous hobbits, the guttural orcs to the ethereal elves, is given a unique vocal signature. You never confuse who is speaking, even without explicit he said or she whispered tags. Why? Because the voice itself carries the character's essence. This isn't just about changing pitch, it's about altering pace, timbre, rhythm, and even breath control to embody distinct personalities. Another excellent example might be a radio drama where actors use only their voices to paint entire worlds and portray a multitude of unique individuals. The listener quickly adapts to these vocal cues, building a rich mental image of each character based solely on their distinct sound. Psychologically, why does this matter so much? Our brains are wired to identify patterns and distinguish individuals. When listening, these vocal cues act as immediate identifiers. A consistent, distinct voice for each character reduces cognitive load. You don't have to consciously recall who's speaking, allowing your mind to focus entirely on the content of the dialogue and the unfolding narrative. Moreover, vocal performance can evoke empathy or antipathy. An earnest, measured tone for Hope might make her more relatable and trustworthy, highlighting her rational nature and dependability, while Braddock's fervent, almost unhinged delivery might emphasize his genius but also hint at his vulnerability to obsession, perhaps even an unreliability or a single-mindedness that could be dangerous. It creates a richer, more nuanced understanding of their inner worlds, their motivations, and their places within the story. It allows us to feel. Psychologically, Slow pacing in storytelling is a powerful tool because it taps into our innate human capacity for anticipation and our primal fear of the unknown. When a narrative slows down, it gives our minds space to wander, to consider possibilities, to formulate potential threats, to fill in the blanks with our own anxieties. It's akin to walking down a long, dimly lit corridor. The slower you walk, the more time you have to imagine what might be lurking in the shadows ahead, or behind, every creak and groan amplified by the silence. This extended period of uncertainty heightens tension and amplifies the emotional impact when the climax or shock finally arrives. The dread isn't just about what is happening, but what might happen, and the prolonged waiting for that might to materialize is often more terrifying than the event itself. Our brains are processing subtle cues, building a mental model of potential threats, and this slow, deliberate feed of information keeps us on edge, making the sudden jolt of violence or discovery far more effective and deeply unsettling. It allows the story to seep into our subconscious, creating a deep-seated unease rather than a superficial shock. For you, the listener, the practical application of recognizing pacing is to allow yourself to surrender to it. Don't rush ahead in your mind, trying to guess what happens next. Instead, embrace the deliberate slowness. Let the descriptions wash over you. Notice how the narrator's voice might deepen slightly, or become more hushed, or even more expansive during these slower passages, almost as if savoring the words themselves. Use these moments to build a richer mental picture of the scene, to absorb the atmosphere, and to truly feel the rising tension. By allowing the story to unfold at its intended rhythm, by giving yourself permission to linger in the descriptive moments, you become a more active and engaged participant in its emotional landscape, fully experiencing the creeping dread that the author and narrator intend to evoke. It's about being present in the moment of the story, allowing yourself to be led, rather than trying to lead the narrative yourself, and trusting that the deliberate pace is serving a vital purpose in your overall experience. Our third key point, one of great importance for any mystery narrative, is the meticulous highlighting of early clues, particularly those related to the Green Mummy's unwrapping. In a well-crafted mystery, the answers are often subtly woven into the fabric of the story from the very beginning, waiting for the astute observer to piece them together. The unwrapping of the Green Mummy is not just a descriptive passage, it's a treasure trove of potential forensic details and narrative foreshadowing, a breadcrumb trail laid out for those with a keen ear. Think back to the description, not the expected earthy brown, but a breathtaking, astonishing shade of viridian, a deep, mossy, almost luminous green. This isn't just an aesthetic detail, it's a potential anomaly. The specific nature of that green, luminous, mossy, infused with the same mysterious pigment, or perhaps the very essence of the jungle, is a clue. Is it a natural pigment, a dye, or something else entirely? Its intensity and unique quality scream "pay attention." The tightness of the bandages, the specific material mentioned, expertly woven reeds, the distinct scent of ancient wood, mixed with something indefinable, something dry and earthy, and even the very location of its discovery in Peru, are all pieces of the puzzle. These seemingly innocuous details, when emphasized by the narrator's tone, perhaps a slight pause, a change in inflection, a subtle shift to a more investigative cadence, or a lingering over key adjectives, are designed to stick in your mind. The narrator might linger on the words mysterious pigment or indefinable smell, subtly signaling their importance without explicitly stating it. Later, these early observations may prove critical in understanding the mummy's true nature, its origin, or ev. Each of these elements works in concert to draw you into the story, making you a more engaged and perceptive participant in the unfolding enigma. The stage is now set, dear listener. A brilliant mind has been silenced, a unique artifact unearthed, and a profound mystery left hanging in the air. The Green Mummy, once a symbol of academic aspiration, now stands as a silent, enigmatic witness to a heinous act. The questions are many: who committed this unspeakable crime? What secrets does the verdant mummy truly hold, locked beneath its ancient wraps and verdant hue? And what terrifying truths lie beneath those ancient, green wraps, waiting to be disturbed? These are the questions that will drive our narrative forward, drawing us inexorably into the next chapter, where the investigation truly begins, and the true chilling nature of the Green Mummy will start to reveal itself, piece by captivating piece. Prepare yourself, for the journey has only just begun. Main chapters, 7 to 12. The suspects gather. Welcome back, dear listeners, as we delve deeper into the intricate web of deceit and mystery woven around the untimely demise of the esteemed Dr. Alastair Finch. In our previous chapters, we set the stage, painting a vivid picture of the isolated grandeur of Finch Manor and hinting at the ancient, unsettling artifact known as the Green Mummy, a relic imbued with an almost palpable aura of forgotten power and whispered curses. Now, as the dust begins to settle over the initial shock, or perhaps, as it begins to stir with even greater intensity, creating a swirling vortex of suspicion and unanswered questions, we arrive at a truly pivotal juncture in our narrative. We are about to meet the key players, the individuals whose lives were most intimately intertwined with Dr. Finch, whose personal histories are now inextricably linked to his tragic end, and whose fates now hang precariously in the balance as suspicion casts its long, dark shadow over the hallowed, yet now undeniably defiled, halls of Finch Manor. This is where the true human drama, the clashing of wills, the revelation of long-buried secrets, and the meticulous process of uncovering hidden truths truly commence. Imagine, if you will, the elegant, yet decidedly rigid, drawing room of Finch Manor. This once vibrant space, a testament to refined taste and intellectual pursuits, is still permeated with the faint, almost ghostly scent of antiseptic, mixed with the musty aroma of old parchment and antique furniture, now chillingly tinged with the metallic tang of tragedy that clings to every surface like an invisible shroud. Into this somber tableau, a scene of polite grief and simmering, unspoken tension, steps Serafina Finch. She is not a blood relative, mind you, but Dr. Finch's stepdaughter, a woman whose striking, almost severe, appearance, all sharp, aristocratic angles, a precisely cut bob of glacial blonde hair, and eyes the color of a winter sky belied a barely contained tempest within. Her entry was not marked by a flurry of genuine, unrestrained tears, the kind that speak of raw, unvarnished heartbreak and a sudden, devastating loss. Instead, her arrival was characterized by a measured, almost theatrical composure, a performance of grief that was as impeccable as her attire. Her designer mourning dress, a masterpiece of understated elegance in the deepest black, was absolutely flawless, not a single pleat out of place, as if she had prepared for this very moment with a chilling foresight, or perhaps, had been preparing for it for quite some time. Her voice, a low, throaty murmur, offered condolences that felt, to an acute observer, just a shade too perfectly pitched, too smoothly delivered, like a carefully practiced aria rather than a spontaneous outpouring of sorrow. What profound secrets might she carry behind that meticulously constructed facade? What deeply rooted grievances might have festered in the years under her stepfather's imposing roof, especially if he was a man as consumed by his esoteric work, as notoriously emotionally absent, as Dr. Finch was widely rumored to be. There were whispers, of course, among the manor staff, hushed conversations behind cupped hands, of the perpetually strained relationship between the brilliant but emotionally distant archaeologist and the sophisticated, socially ambitious woman he had married late in life, a marriage that had, of course, brought Serafina into his formidable orbit. Was her presence in the manor now merely a duty, a necessary formality to observe the conventions of mourning, or was there something far more significant, something deeply personal and potentially lucrative, at stake for her? Perhaps a substantial inheritance that would secure her already comfortable future, a welcome release from a burdensome obligation, or even a deep-seated resentment, a desire for retribution, that had been patiently waiting for its opportune moment to surface. She moved through the room with a deliberate, almost balletic grace, her every gesture meticulously controlled, revealing nothing beyond a veneer of a. The very air around him seemed to hum with an unspoken tension, an almost imperceptible energy that suggested a mind constantly at work, processing every scrap of information, planning every move, always striving to be a few crucial steps ahead. Julian Thorne, with his enigmatic calm, represented the quiet, insidious threat, the wolf in sheep's clothing, or perhaps, simply a truly devastated aide overwhelmed by circumstances. The line between these two possibilities was unsettlingly blurred, adding another layer of complexity to the unfolding tragedy. But the private drama of Finch Manor, the intricate interplay of grief and ambition among its privileged inhabitants, soon gives way to the more public, albeit equally intense and scrutinizing, gaze of the law. Enter Detective Inspector Thomas Mallory, a man whose weary eyes, shadowed by countless years of witnessing humanity's darkest impulses and most profound betrayals, had seen too many meticulously spun lies in the cold face of death. He wasn't one for dramatics, for grand gestures. His approach was methodical, almost relentlessly so, his questions sharp and precise, designed to cut through the emotional fog and social niceties of the crime scene like a surgeon's cold, efficient scalpel. His perpetually rumpled tweed jacket and deeply furrowed brow spoke volumes of a mind constantly at work, tirelessly sifting through the dross of human weakness and deception for the gleaming, undeniable shard of truth. He carried the heavy burden of experience, a quiet, almost pervasive cynicism that allowed him to see past initial impressions, past the polite veneers, straight to the often ugly realities beneath. Accompanying him was Sergeant Beatrice Harding, affectionately known as BEA to her colleagues, a younger, yet remarkably astute, officer whose quiet demeanor and unassuming presence belied a keenly observational mind, a sharpness that often surprised those who underestimated her. While Inspector Mallory, with his seasoned experience, focused on the broader strokes of the investigation, the overarching motive, the undeniable opportunity, the tangible means, BEA, with her fresh perspective, noticed the almost imperceptible details, the subtle shifts in body language, the unspoken, loaded tensions passing between individuals, the minute positioning of a supposedly random object, the lingering scent that didn't quite belong, the almost microscopic flaw in an otherwise perfect explanation. She was the perfect foil to Mallory's seasoned weariness, bringing a sharp, unjaded perspective, an innate ability to spot the anomalies, the incongruities, that older, more jaded eyes might dismiss as irrelevant. Their arrival immediately, irrevocably, changes the entire atmosphere of Finch Manor, transforming what was once a grand house of mourning into a tightly controlled crime scene, a sanctuary of ancient knowledge into a meticulously orchestrated stage for interrogation. The polite veneer of the upper class, the carefully constructed walls of privilege, were about to be systematically stripped away, revealing the raw, often ugly, and deeply human truth simmering beneath. This is precisely where our journey truly begins to morph, shifting from an atmospheric, descriptive mystery to a more pointed, more urgent, and deeply procedural quest for undeniable truth. This is the moment when the narrative tone itself begins to adapt, much like a detective adjusting their lens, sharpening their focus not just on the what of the tragedy, but on the far more perplexing, the far more unsettling, and deeply human who and why, initiating the meticulous, often frustrating, yet ultimately captivating dance of investigation that promises to expose secrets far older and far more dangerous than even Dr. Finch's shocking death initially suggests. The clock is now ticking, not just for the elusive pursuit of justice, but for the very soul of Finch Manor, and perhaps, for the fate of all who dwell within its shadow. So, what does this pivotal shift in narrative tone truly mean for us, the listeners? We, as the audience, are not merely told a story, we are drawn directly, intimately, into the procedural dance, becoming amateur detectives ourselves, sifting through the presented facts with an almost obsessive zeal, trying desperately, perhaps even competitively, to beat the fictional investigators to the elusive truth. We learn the jargon, we understand the protocols, and we revel in the intellectual challenge of the chase, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment with every new piece of information we mentally slot into place. This active engagement creates a bond with the narrative that transcends simple entertainment, transforming the listener into a vested, intellectually engaged participant in the arduous quest for justice. Why does this procedural shift resonate so profoundly with the intricate machinery of the human psyche? It taps into a multitude of our inherent desires and cognitive functions. Foremost, it appeals to our deep-seated need for order, for resolution, for the restoration of equilibrium when faced with chaos, with the terrifying disruption of violence. When confronted with the stark, brutal disruption of a murder, our minds instinctively crave structure, a clear, logical pathway back to understanding, a profound sense that justice can, and will, be served in a world that suddenly feels unjust and precarious. The investigative process, with its rigid rules, its scientific methodologies, its relentless pursuit of objective facts, provides precisely that longed-for structure. It appeals directly to our fundamental problem-solving instincts, our logical faculties, our innate curiosity to unravel complex enigmas, thereby transforming what could otherwise be a passive listening experience into an active, invigorating intellectual puzzle, a mental workout. Furthermore, by placing us, the audience, vicariously within the shoes of the detective, mirroring their perspective, their nagging doubts, their moments of sudden breakthrough, we experience a profound sense of agency, a vicarious power in the arduous, often frustrating, process of uncovering truth. It satisfies our insatiable curiosity about how things truly work in the realm of justice and law enforcement, offering an unparalleled glimpse behind the often opaque curtain of official investigations. It's a fascinating journey into the very mechanics of detection, and we are given a front row seat, often feeling as though we are sitting at the very same table as Inspector Mallory, sifting through the evidence alongside him, sharing his triumphs and his frustrations. As a listener, how can you most effectively and actively engage with this crucial shift in narrative focus? First and foremost, I encourage you to cultivate what I like to call a detective's ear or, for those who prefer, an investigator's mind. This means paying exceptionally closer attention to even the most seemingly innocuous descriptions of objects, to the precise phrasing in dialogue, to the subtle nuances of vocal inflection as characters are introduced or questioned under pressure. Is a character described as fidgeting nervously, running a hand through their hair with undue frequency? Does their voice betray a barely perceptible tremor, or does it remain unnaturally steady, almost too steady, under questioning? Is a statement too precise, too perfectly crafted to sound genuinely spontaneous, or conversely, too vague, too evasive in its answers? Second, begin, with intentionality, to formulate your own hypotheses as the story unfolds, allowing your mind to wander through various possibilities. As the characters present their initial alibis, as new pieces of information emerge, as discrepancies are subtly highlighted by the narrator or the investigators, ask yourself, with a critical, discerning eye, does this information truly make sense within the established context? What are the plausible alternative explanations for this event or statement? Where might this lead, and what could be the consequences? Third, become acutely sensitive to the narrative's pacing and rhythm. No. He became outwardly helpful, almost excessively eager to provide information, a veritable fount of detail, as if desperate to prove his innocence or his indispensable loyalty. "Inspector," he began, his voice smooth, controlled, yet tinged with what sounded like genuine sorrow, "I was here, in the servants' quarters, as usual. Dr. Finch often worked late into the night, you see, a man truly dedicated to his antiquarian pursuits, often losing track of time, and I, too, keep rather odd hours, tending to his voluminous correspondence, his intricate research notes, and the general upkeep of his affairs, always ensuring everything was in its proper place." He then proceeded to detail his entire evening, an impeccable, almost painstakingly perfect, timeline of solitary, studious activity, punctuated by the delivery of a late-night cup of Earl Grey tea to Dr. Finch's study around midnight. "I saw him alive then, Inspector. He seemed, quite himself, if a little agitated about the ongoing, rather complex, restoration work on the Green Mummy, expressing some concerns about the ancient preservation techniques. He was utterly engrossed, as he often was, utterly absorbed in his work. Was this an exquisitely constructed alibi, designed with a master's touch to place him both nearby, yet utterly innocuous, a dutiful servant attending to his master's needs, simply going about his routine? Or was it the simple, unvarnished truth, tragically placing him as the very last person to see Dr. Finch alive? The very meticulousness of his account, its almost flawless precision, its absolute lack of any hesitation, paradoxically raised a different kind of suspicion in Mallory's seasoned mind, the kind that suggests a story practiced too many times, a narrative too perfectly polished to be entirely spontaneous. Consider, as a potent, timeless real-world storytelling example, the unparalleled genius of Agatha Christie's masterpieces, particularly the claustrophobic tension of "And Then There Were None," or the intricate tapestry of suspicion woven in Murder on the Orient Express. In these timeless classics, the sheer brilliance of the narrative lies not just in the complex, almost surgical, intricacy of the plot, but in the meticulous, almost psychological, unveiling of each suspect's unique personality, their deeply intertwined relationships with the victim, their personal histories replete with hidden secrets, and the fragile, often contradictory, nature of their carefully constructed alibis. Master detectives like Hercule Poirot or Miss Marple don't merely solve a crime by identifying the perpetrator, they delve deep into the abyss of the human condition, exposing the fragile, often deceptive facades that people meticulously present to the world, revealing the raw truths beneath. Each suspect's interview becomes not just a simple question and answer session, but a high-stakes battle of wits, a delicate, dangerous dance between truth and deception, where the smallest tell a momentary hesitation, a barely perceptible shift in eye contact, a seemingly misplaced word, or an emotional tremor in their voice can betray a world of hidden motives, unspoken resentments, and potentially deadly secrets. The audience is invited to not just witness, but to actively participate in this psychological duel, scrutinizing every gesture, every intonation, every carefully chosen word, becoming an integral part of the investigative process. Why are hidden motives and fragile alibis such profoundly compelling and enduring elements in the art of storytelling, captivating audiences across generations and cultures? They speak directly to our inherent fascination with the darker, more enigmatic aspects of human nature, our insatiable curiosity about what truly drives people to commit acts of such profound transgression, to cross the ultimate line into the unforgivable. We are irresistibly drawn to characters who are complex, who are not simply dichotomous figures of good or evil, but who possess a nuanced, often contradictory, mixture of light and shadow, driven by. The air was heavy with the unspoken questions that clung to every shadow, every dust mot. They had scoured every shelf, every drawer, examined every document with forensic detail, but something, a subtle, nagging intuition, still felt profoundly off, a discord in the carefully arranged symphony of the room. There was a faint, almost imperceptible, smudge on the spine of a rarely used book, a weighty, leather-bound tome on ancient Egyptian embalming techniques and funerary rites, that seemed utterly out of place, a subtle anomaly in Dr. Finch's otherwise meticulously organized library, a tiny flaw in an otherwise perfect facade. Mallory, a man who trusted his gut feelings as much as empirical evidence, following a fleeting, almost unconscious hunch, pulled the book from its snug resting place. With a soft, almost ethereal click, a concealed panel in the rich mahogany shelving, expertly hidden to blend seamlessly with its surroundings, slid open with a whisper, revealing a small, dark, hidden recess within the wall, previously invisible to the naked eye. Inside, nestled incongruously on a square of ancient, faded velvet cushion, was not a secret, incriminating journal, nor a clandestine weapon, nor even a forgotten family heirloom. Instead, there was a small, intricately carved emerald scarab beetle, its polished, verdant surface seeming to glow with an eerie, almost internal light, pulsing with a silent, ancient energy that defied its diminutive size. It was unmistakable, instantly recognizable to anyone familiar with Dr. Finch's extensive research, a protective amulet, vividly described in Dr. Finch's deciphered notes as a crucial, long-lost component of the Green Mummy's original burial ensemble, a sacred artifact believed to hold immense, possibly supernatural, power, a key to understanding the mummy's true, terrifying significance. but it wasn't just its astonishing, unexpected presence that sent a jolt of shock through the two seasoned investigators. It was the fact that a fresh, almost glistening, smear of dried, dark blood was conspicuously visible on its polished, verdant surface, a crimson stain stark and horrifying against the cool, ancient green. A cold, dreadful, deeply unsettling realization dawned, slowly but inexorably, on Inspector Mallory, chilling him to the bone. This wasn't merely a hidden artifact, a historical curiosity unexpectedly unearthed. This was a direct, undeniable, and terrifyingly fresh link to the heinous crime, placed there, perhaps, by the very hand of the killer, or tragically dropped by Dr. Finch himself in his desperate, final struggle for life. And as Sergeant Harding, her eyes wide with dawning horror and a dawning understanding, gasped audibly, pointing a trembling finger to a barely visible, almost microscopic, tear in the ancient velvet lining of the recess, the full, chilling implication struck them both with the visceral force of a physical blow. The scarab was not merely found after years of being lost, it had been recently placed, and hastily at that, its velvet bed still disturbed by its recent insertion. The killer was not only still at large, lurking somewhere unseen, stalking the very corridors of Finch Manor, but had perhaps very recently, perhaps even mere hours ago, been in this very room, touching this very object, and leaving behind a chilling, bloody signature that defied explanation, that screamed of premeditation and proximity. The silence in the study grew heavy, oppressive, charged with a terrifying new possibility that clawed at their minds, twisting their perceptions. Could it truly be one of them? A suspect already interviewed, already claiming an airtight alibi, a person who had looked them directly in the eye and lied with chilling composure, their hands perhaps still stained with the victim's blood? The emerald scarab pulsed ominously in the dim, artificial light, a silent, glittering testament to a truth far more sinister, far more entangled with the ancient curse of the green mummy, than they had yet imagined. The implications were stag. As we draw this particularly intense and revealing segment to a close, dear listeners, we have journeyed far beyond the initial, chilling shock of Dr. Finch's inexplicable death and into the burgeoning, deeply unsettling complexities of a formal murder investigation. We have now been formally introduced to the immediate, central circle of suspects, each one shrouded in their own particular brand of mystery and potential guilt. There is the enigmatic stepdaughter, Seraphina Finch, whose elegant grief seemed inextricably tinged with a cold, calculating ambition, her carefully composed exterior hinting at a tempest of unspoken resentments and undeniable financial motivations. Then we met the seemingly indispensable and utterly devoted personal assistant, Julian Thorne, whose meticulous helpfulness and encyclopedic knowledge of Dr. Finch's life might, upon closer inspection, mask a far deeper, more insidious agenda, perhaps driven by intellectual jealousy or a thirst for recognition long denied, a thirst that could turn deadly. And finally, we have seen the measured yet hopeful duo of Inspector Mallory and Sergeant Harding, who represent the unwavering, methodical hand of justice, slowly but surely tightening the net of inquiry around Finch Manor. We've not only witnessed but actively participated in the narrative's subtle yet profound shift from atmospheric scene setting to a rigorous, procedural tone, compelling us to don our own metaphorical detective hats, to sharpen our observational skills, and to scrutinize every detail, every nuance, every contradictory statement from the suspects. We've delved into the compelling psychological allure of hidden motives, understanding how the unspoken desires, the secret histories, and the profound insecurities of individuals can propel them towards unthinkable acts, towards the ultimate transgression. And we've observed the intricate, often fragile dance of alibis, recognizing how easily they can unravel under the relentless pressure of forensic examination and persistent questioning, transforming a simple whodunit into a profound, often disturbing, exploration of the very depths of human nature, a chilling study of the darkness that can lurk beneath the most polished surfaces. And finally, dear listeners, we've deliberately, perhaps even cruelly, left you at the precipice of a new, utterly terrifying discovery, the bloodied emerald scarab beetle, a crucial, ancient amulet, previously thought lost, now re-emerging from a secret compartment in Dr. Finch's study. Its astonishing presence, and particularly the fresh smear of dark, crimson blood on its polished, verdant surface, irrevocably links the Green Mummy, the very heart of Dr. Finch's life's work and obsession, directly to the murder in a way that is both ancient and terrifyingly modern. This chilling artifact suggests a truth far closer to home than anyone could have initially imagined, pointing towards a killer who walks among them, unseen, unheard, yet leaving behind the most chilling, the most personal, of signatures. This pivotal, shocking moment not only fundamentally redefines the parameters of the entire investigation, throwing earlier assumptions into disarray and shattering preconceived notions, but also intensifies the urgency, pointing towards a murderer who is not a shadowy stranger, but a familiar face, a presence within Finch Manor itself, one of those we have just met. The stage is now perfectly set, the players both living and, in a sense, long dead are assembled, and the deadly game has irrevocably, terrifyingly, begun. In our next chapters, armed with this startling new evidence and a heightened sense of suspicion that colors every interaction, we will collectively delve even deeper into the labyrinth of deceit, confront more startling, unforeseen revelations, and perhaps, just perhaps, inch tantalizingly closer to understanding the true, terrifying secret that lies buried within the Green Mummy. The answers will not come easily, for the truth in Finch Manor is as ancient, as convoluted, and as jealously goo. Main chapters, 13 to 18, unraveling the threads. Welcome, dear listener, to a deeper exploration of the Green Mummy, as we venture into its third major section, encompassing chapters 13 through 18. Here, the meticulously woven threads of mystery begin to truly unravel, revealing not just hidden truths, but also the tangled web of human deceit and ambition. Our focus today is on the very heart of this investigative journey, deepening the inquiry, confronting the baffling Peruvian versus Egyptian mummy mix-up, and deftly navigating the treacherous waters of red herrings designed to throw us off course. Imagine, if you will, the profound shock of discovery when an artifact believed to be of one origin is definitively proven to be from another entirely. This isn't merely a factual correction, it's a seismic shift that cracks open the very foundation of the story, forcing our protagonist, and indeed, us, to question everything that has come before. The initial premise, the very title of the book, is suddenly imbued with layers of irony and suspicion. How could such a significant error occur? Was it an honest mistake, an ancient mix-up lost to the annals of time, or something far more sinister, a deliberate act of deception designed to mislead and manipulate? These are the questions that will drive our narrative forward, pulling us deeper into a labyrinth of clues and complexities. The revelation of the Peruvian mummy, when an Egyptian one was expected, serves as our primary catalyst. It's a moment of profound disruption, compelling our investigator to discard preconceived notions and embark on a thorough, often painstaking, re-evaluation of every piece of evidence. This isn't just about identifying the mummy's true provenance, it's about understanding the entire chain of custody, the motives of those involved, and the secrets that have been carefully guarded for decades, perhaps even centuries. As we peel back these layers, we'll encounter misdirections, false leads, and characters whose true intentions are shrouded in shadow. The red herrings aren't just plot devices, they are reflections of the characters' attempts to protect themselves, their reputations, or their ill-gotten gains. They challenge our ability to discern truth from fabrication, inviting us to become amateur detectives alongside our protagonist, scrutinizing every word, every gesture, every fleeting expression. Now, let's delve into how we meticulously craft this experience for you, the listener, ensuring that every nuance of this unfolding mystery is not only understood but truly felt. Our first key point revolves around the pacing of our narrative, adopting a thoughtful, analytical rhythm that perfectly mirrors the meticulous work of detective investigation. Have you ever noticed how in the most compelling mystery novels or true crime documentaries, the storyteller doesn't rush through the crucial moments of deduction? They linger, allowing you to absorb the details, to connect the dots in your own mind, to truly feel the weight of each discovery. This isn't by accident, it's a deliberate choice designed to enhance your engagement and intellectual curiosity. Consider, for a moment, the iconic figure of Sherlock Holmes. When he stands over a crime scene, or interviews a suspect, his process is never hurried. Arthur Conan Doyle, through the voice of Dr. Watson, walks us through Holmes's observations, his initial hypotheses, the subtle shifts in his deductions as new information comes to light. "Observe, Watson, observe," he might exclaim, and then he would proceed to lay out his reasoning with almost painstaking detail, presenting the facts, connecting seemingly disparate pieces of information, until the grand tapestry of the truth begins to emerge. Similarly, in a well-crafted true crime podcast, the narrator doesn't just present the facts, they guide you through the investigation's twists and turns, perhaps detailing the forensic analysis, the re-examination of witness statements, the slow, methodical process of eliminating suspects. The pauses, the deliberate emphasis, the careful weighing of probabilities, these elements combine to create a sense of shared intellectual journey. You're not just being told a story, you're participating in the act of discovery. From a psychological perspective, this thoughtful pacing is absolutely vital because it mirrors how our own brains naturally process complex information and solve problems. When confronted with a puzzle, our minds don't immediately leap to the solution. Instead, we gather data, we analyze, we test hypotheses, we re-evaluate. A rushed narrative denies us this crucial cognitive space. By allowing the story to unfold with a deliberate, analytical rhythm, we foster a sense of intellectual engagement, encouraging you to actively participate in the detective work. It respects your intelligence, inviting you to connect the clues, to formulate your own theories, and to experience the satisfaction of understanding alongside the protagonist. This creates a much deeper level of immersion and satisfaction than simply being spoon-fed a resolution. It builds suspense not through frantic action, but through the slow, inevitable tightening of the intellectual noose around the truth. We feel the tension mount as the pieces slowly click into place, making the eventual reveal all the more impactful. So, how can you, our discerning listener, practically apply this understanding to enhance your experience? Firstly, embrace the pauses. When the narrator describes our protagonist, Dr. Eris Thorne, meticulously examining an old ledger or carefully cross-referencing conflicting testimonies, allow yourself that moment to reflect. What do these details signify to you? Are there any inconsistencies you notice? Secondly, pay close attention to the language used to describe Thorne's thought process. Words like pondered, deduced, scrutinized, and cross-referenced are not just descriptive, they are invitations to join in the intellectual labor. Try to anticipate Thorne's next logical step. What would you do in his position? By actively engaging with the deliberate rhythm of the narrative, you transform from a passive recipient of information into an active participant in the unfolding mystery. This analytical pacing isn't just a stylistic choice, it's a foundational element for building a truly compelling and intellectually stimulating detective story. Let's now turn our attention to the second crucial element in unraveling these complex threads: the subtle shifts in pitch used to indicate suspicion and deceit within the dialogue. As human beings, we are remarkably adept at picking up on nonverbal cues, often subconsciously. A voice can betray more than words, can it not? The skilled narrator understands this innate human ability and wields it with precision, adding layers of subtext and emotional truth to every conversation. Think about a character in a classic spy thriller, perhaps being interrogated. When they deliver a half-truth, or outright lie, a master voice actor doesn't necessarily make it overt. Instead, they might introduce a slight vocal fry, a subtle gravelly texture that suggests tension or discomfort. Or perhaps, the pitch might rise ever so slightly at the end of a sentence that should sound definitive and confident, betraying an underlying uncertainty or an attempt to deflect. Imagine a character asked, "Were you at the warehouse on the night of the 23rd?" and they respond, "I was, elsewhere." That barely perceptible waver, that slight increase in vocal tension, immediately flags the statement as potentially dishonest. Or perhaps a character speaks a little faster than usual, or slightly softer, almost as if trying to get the words out quickly before they can be scrutinized, or making themselves less noticeable. These are the nuanced signals that our brains process, often before our conscious minds even register the discrepancy. In a courtroom drama, a witness might lower their voice significantly when describing a key detail they wish to minimize, or their tone might become overly saccade. We spend more energy trying to remember who is related to whom and how, rather than investing emotionally in the unfolding drama. This leads to disengagement. Conversely, when the narrator ensures these relationships are crystal clear, it allows the listener to construct a mental map of the characters and their connections. This map then serves as a framework upon which the emotional weight of the betrayals can be built. We understand the why behind a character's actions, the deep-seated motivations that lead to deceit, because we understand their history and their position within the family structure. This clarity makes the betrayals more poignant, the stakes higher, and the narrative far more compelling, as we feel the personal impact of each revelation. We can empathize with the characters, understand their dilemmas, and appreciate the nuanced layers of their motivations because their familial context is never in doubt. So, how can you, the engaged listener, actively participate in tracking these intricate family dynamics within The Green Mummy? Firstly, whenever a new character is introduced, or an existing one is referenced, make a conscious effort to connect them to the main family tree. Who is their parent, sibling, spouse, or cousin? What is their relationship to the central figures of the mystery, particularly the original owner of the mummy? You might even consider mentally sketching out a small family tree as you listen, if that helps you keep track. Secondly, pay close attention to any brief contextual reminders the narrator offers. These are often intentionally inserted to refresh your memory about a character's background or their connection to another. For example, if the narrator says, "Eleanor, still harboring resentment towards her cousin, Marcus," that phrase is a precious clue to both their relationship and their emotional history. By actively building and maintaining this mental family map, you won't just follow the plot, you'll deeply understand the emotional resonance of every revelation, every betrayal, and every long-buried secret that our protagonist, Dr. Eris Thorne, unearths. Let us now bring these elements together, visualizing Dr. Eris Thorne's journey through chapters 13 to 18. Imagine Thorne, a seasoned archaeologist, initially driven by academic curiosity, now finds himself thrust into the role of a detective. The initial shock of the Peruvian mummy discovery would be a visceral moment, perhaps a gasp caught in the air of the hushed laboratory as the final, irrefutable carbon dating results or stylistic analyses come in. The voice of the leading expert, typically precise and unwavering, might have carried a hint of surprise, a slight widening of the eyes that belies their professional composure. "It's Peruvian," the voice might state, a subtle drop in pitch at the end, conveying the unexpected nature of the finding. From the Paracas culture, perhaps. Certainly not late-period Egyptian. This revelation isn't just scientific, it's a direct challenge to the very identity of the artifact that has been the focus of so much expectation and funding. Chapter 13 would likely open with Thorne grappling with this profound discrepancy. The wealthy collector, an imposing figure named Alastair Finch, who commissioned the mummy's retrieval, would be in a state of indignant disbelief. His voice, usually booming with authority, might now be edged with a sharp, almost brittle quality, perhaps a quickening of his speech as he demands explanations. "Impossible. My grandfather acquired an Egyptian mummy. This is a mistake, an outrage." Such a reaction would instantly raise Thorne's finely tuned antennae, prompting an analytical pause. Why such vehemence? Is it merely wounded pride, or something more? This initial interaction would set the stage, introducing the first potential red herring, perhaps the museum staff, who handled the initial assessment, or the shipping company responsible for its transport. Thorne would then methodically begin their investigation, sifting through acquis. "These are old stories, Doctor. Childhood squabbles. My brother always exaggerating." But as Thorne calmly, methodically, lays out the evidence, her vocal defenses might crumble. We might hear a subtle cracking in her voice, a sudden loss of volume, or a slow, deliberate lowering of her gaze, signaling that she is indeed cornered. Perhaps she doesn't admit to the swap herself, but rather reveals a long-held family secret, that her father, Alastair's grandfather, was involved in an illicit trade, or that a valuable Egyptian mummy was indeed sold off under duress, and a Peruvian one substituted to maintain appearances and conceal the financial desperation. The betrayal isn't necessarily by Eleanor, but a betrayal she has known about and perhaps protected for decades, a secret that has silently poisoned family relationships. This is where the intricacies of family dynamics truly blossom into betrayals, revealing the painful choices made generations ago. Finally, Chapter 18 sees Dr. Eris Thorne piecing together the full mosaic of the deception. The green mummy of the title takes on its true significance. Perhaps the Peruvian mummy itself was indeed wrapped in a distinctive green textile, a deliberate choice by the original Peruvian culture, which became an ironic identifier of the cover-up. Or perhaps green refers to money, the financial motive that drove the initial deception. Thorne might deduce that the Peruvian mummy was acquired under dubious circumstances, then substituted for the highly prized and perhaps illegally acquired Egyptian one, which was secretly sold to an anonymous buyer to avert financial ruin or to fund an extravagant lifestyle. The family, or at least certain members, knew about it but kept silent, perpetuating the lie. The motivation for the swap might be multifaceted: financial gain, covering up a prior illegal act, or even a deep-seated desire for status and legacy within the family, even if built on a lie. The chapter would culminate in a major revelation, perhaps not the ultimate culprit of the present-day confusion, but the original architect of the swap, and the reasons behind it. The original green mummy was never Egyptian, but a placeholder, a carefully constructed illusion. The true Egyptian mummy vanished decades ago, replaced by its Peruvian counterpart in a scheme of astonishing audacity and long-term deceit. The emotional impact of this revelation would be profound. It's not just a puzzle solved, it's a family legacy shattered, a history rewritten. The narrator's voice would carry the weight of this discovery, a tone of quiet certainty, a culmination of painstaking analytical work. The green mummy, it would be revealed, was a lie from its very inception, a testament to human greed and the enduring power of family secrets. The chapter would conclude with a lingering question, a new mystery born from the ashes of the old: where is the real Egyptian mummy? And what other deceptions lie hidden within the Finch family archives? This expertly crafted conclusion would propel us forward, eager to uncover the next layer of the green mummy's enigmatic past. Main chapters, 19 to 24. The trap is set. Welcome, dear listeners, to a pivotal moment in our journey through the green mummy. We stand now on the precipice, teetering on the brink of revelation, as we delve into chapters 19 through 24, aptly titled "The Trap is Set." This is where the threads of mystery, woven so meticulously throughout the preceding narrative, begin to tighten, forming a complex, suffocating knot around our characters and, indeed, around us. The air grows heavy with anticipation, the stakes are undeniably higher, and the very ground beneath our feet feels as if it could give way at any moment. At its core, this section of the story signifies a dramatic shift from quiet investigation to imminent confrontation. The gentle probing, the careful collection of clues, the speculative whispers, all of that is now behind us. We are moving into a phase where the true, terrifying nature of the green mummy begins to solidify, no longer a mere artifact of ancient terror or a macabre curiosity, but something far more insidious, something inextricably linked to the present danger. What is this green mummy, truly? Is it a cursed object, a symbol of a forgotten vengeance, or perhaps a cleverly disguised instrument of a very human evil? The answers, I assure you, are closer than they've ever been. Simultaneously, and perhaps even more chillingly, the identity of the murderer, or at least the outline of their motive and methodology, starts to emerge from the shadows. The veil of anonymity that has protected our antagonist, allowing them to operate with such chilling precision and elusive grace, begins to fray. We start to see glimmers of their personality, hints of their desperation, or perhaps the cold, calculating nature of their intent. This isn't just about who did it anymore, it's about understanding why, about recognizing the insidious logic behind the horrors that have unfolded. The climax, my friends, is not merely approaching, it is breathing down our necks, its cold breath a palpable presence in every line and every uttered word. As we navigate these crucial chapters, the way we tell the story, the way we embody its escalating tension, becomes paramount. A narrator's voice, much like a conductor's baton, guides the emotional orchestra of the listener's experience. And for the trap is set, there are specific techniques that will not only enhance the narrative but also truly immerse you, the audience, in the heart-pounding drama unfolding. Our first critical point, and one that cannot be overstated in its importance for these chapters, involves a deliberate and strategic increase in the reading tempo. We must allow the pace of our narration to reflect the rising tension and the escalating stakes. Think about it, when you find yourself in a genuinely thrilling situation in your own life, perhaps you're rushing to catch a flight, or you're trying to solve a complex problem under a deadline, your internal monologue, your very perception of time, quickens, doesn't it? The words tumble out faster, the thoughts race, and there's an undeniable urgency that permeates your being. We need to capture that very essence in our narration. Consider a classic suspense film, perhaps something by Alfred Hitchcock like Psycho or North by Northwest. As the protagonist draws closer to danger, or as the truth of their predicament begins to dawn on them, notice how the editing becomes quicker, the musical score builds in intensity and tempo, and the camera movements become more dynamic, less lingering. It's not just what you see or hear, it's the rhythm of the presentation that heightens your physiological response. Your heart rate might subtly increase, your breath might shorten, and you find yourself leaning forward, gripping the edge of your seat. This is precisely the effect we aim to create with an increased reading tempo in these chapters. We're not just relaying information, we're transmitting the very feeling of impending doom, of a race against time. Psychologically, this matters immensely because human beings are incredibly attuned to patterns. Firstly, identify the moments within these chapters where the characters are experiencing a surge of urgency. This could be during a chase, a frantic search for a clue, an intense interrogation, or when a sudden realization strikes and demands immediate action. In those passages, consciously reduce the duration of your pauses between words and sentences. Instead of a natural, relaxed rhythm, aim for a slightly more clipped, continuous flow. Articulate your words clearly, of course, but allow them to follow one another with less interruption. It's not about slurring or rushing to the point of unintelligibility, it's about maintaining a forward momentum, a relentless push. Practice reading these sections aloud, first at a leisurely pace, and then gradually increase your speed, focusing on maintaining clarity while injecting that sense of quickening energy. Imagine an internal clock ticking faster and faster. You might also find that your vocal pitch subtly rises, or your volume slightly increases as you embody this heightened state, which further enhances the effect. Remember, the goal is to make the listener feel that they, too, are caught in the escalating current of events, rather than merely observing them from a safe distance. Now, let's move to our second crucial technique for these chapters, delivering dialogue with heightened emotion, fear, and urgency. These are not conversations over tea, these are exchanges brimming with raw human experience. The characters are under immense pressure, facing terrifying truths, and their words are not just conveying information, but expressing profound internal states. Think of a deeply dramatic scene in a play or film. Perhaps a character is confronting a formidable adversary, or they are desperately pleading for the life of a loved one, or they've just discovered a horrifying truth. Recall the iconic scene in The Silence of the Lambs where Clarice Starling finally confronts Hannibal Lecter in his cell, and his chilling words are delivered with a calm, yet utterly terrifying, precision, while her own questions are laced with a tremor of professional determination battling against palpable fear. Or perhaps the desperate cries in a disaster movie where characters are shouting warnings over the roar of chaos. The actors don't just say the lines, they imbue them with the very essence of their character's emotional state. A voice might crack with suppressed tears, or be laced with a bitter cynicism, or boom with a sudden, overwhelming rage. These are the nuances that elevate simple words into powerful expressions of a character's soul. From a psychological perspective, this emotional delivery is incredibly potent because it taps into our innate ability to detect and respond to nonverbal vocal cues. Our brains are hardwired to pick up on variations in pitch, volume, rhythm, and timbre as indicators of emotion. A sudden gasp, a trembling voice, a sharp, clipped tone, or a barely audible whisper, these are all universal signals that transcend language barriers and communicate directly with our amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, particularly fear. When a narrator expertly infuses dialogue with these vocal characteristics, the listener doesn't just understand that a character is afraid, they feel a resonance of that fear within themselves. This is empathy in action. It makes the characters feel more real, more vulnerable, and their struggles more immediate and relatable. It's the difference between hearing a character say "I'm scared" and hearing a character sound scared, with a catch in their throat and a slight tremor that speaks volumes without needing additional exposition. It draws us deeper into their predicament, making their anxieties and their desperate pleas our own. This emotional connection transforms the story from an intellectual exercise into a deeply felt experience. For practical application, a narrator must become, for those moments, the character speaking. This requires a level of emotional commitment that goes beyond mere reading. It's an exercise in restraint that ultimately amplifies the drama and ensures that the listener doesn't just hear the twist, but feels it deep within their bones. It allows the suspense, built up over pages and chapters, to finally explode, and then for the echoes of that explosion to linger. So, to summarize our approach for The Trap is Set, remember these three pillars. First, allow your reading tempo to surge and recede with the escalating tension, propelling the listener forward into the heart of the conflict. Second, infuse every line of dialogue with the raw, palpable emotions of the characters, letting their fear, urgency, and desperation resonate in every syllable. And third, wield the potent weapon of silence, using brief, pregnant pauses to ensure that every major plot twist lands with maximum impact, giving your audience the space to absorb the shock and significance of the revelations. These chapters, 19 through 24, are not merely a bridge to the climax, they are the beginning of the climax itself. They are where the pieces, scattered like a deadly puzzle, finally begin to interlock, revealing a picture far more terrifying than previously imagined. As we embark on this journey into the intensifying heart of The Green Mummy, prepare yourselves for a ride that will quicken your pulse, challenge your assumptions, and leave you breathless. The trap, dear listeners, is indeed set, and no one, not our protagonists, nor we, the audience, are entirely safe from its inevitable snap. Let us now, with these principles firmly in mind, turn the page and plunge into the accelerating drama of The Trap is Set. Chapter 19. The chilling revelation from the decrypted inscription had cast a pall over the usually vibrant study. Professor Armitage, a man whose life revolved around the steady certainties of ancient texts, now found himself adrift in a sea of modern terror. His hands, usually so steady when handling delicate papyrus, trembled slightly as he reread the translation. The guardian sleeps, but awakens with the serpent's sting. When the sacred blood flows, the mummy stirs, and the curse unfurls its green shroud. He looked up, his eyes meeting Evelyn's, a silent question passing between them. Was this a prophecy? Or a chillingly precise blueprint for murder? Evelyn, usually the picture of composure, felt a knot of dread tighten in her stomach. Her gaze flickered to the newspaper clipping lying on the desk, a grainy photo of the latest victim, a renowned Egyptologist found dead, his skin strangely discolored. Green. Just like the mummy. And just like the ancient texts warned. Professor, she began, her voice a little softer than usual, the sacred blood, do you think it refers to specific individuals? Those connected to the original expedition. Armitage stroked his neatly trimmed beard, his brow furrowed in deep thought. It's highly plausible, Evelyn. The original team wasn't just a random collection of archaeologists. They were all members of the Royal Society, deeply invested in the discovery. And the victims thus far, all have clear ties to that initial group, or their direct descendants. This isn't just a random spree. This is targeted. A calculated vengeance, perhaps, or a desperate attempt to protect some forgotten secret. He paused, his eyes darting to the locked display case across the room, where the green mummy lay, a silent, ominous presence. The serpent's sting, is that a metaphorical reference to betrayal? Or something more literal? A poison. The urgency in his voice was undeniable, a subtle quickening of his usual academic cadence. Evelyn felt it, too. The intellectual puzzle was now a race against death. If it's poison, Professor, then the method is clear. But the motive, and the guardian? Is that the mummy itself, or someone protecting it, enacting this curse? Her mind raced, sifting through the suspects they had, the strained alibis, the hidden resentments. The police had their theories, but they were looking for a conventional killer. They weren't prepared. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. It's a signature, Inspector. A highly specific, highly unsettling signature. The silence that followed was pregnant, heavy with unspoken questions and growing doubts in Davies's mind. He drummed his fingers on his desk, a rare sign of his internal struggle. Davies finally broke the silence, his voice a little softer, a hint of grudging acceptance creeping in. All right. Let's entertain this grotesque possibility. If this green mummy is either a substitution or contains a recently mummified body, then it points to a killer with extensive knowledge of both ancient embalming practices and modern chemistry. Someone with access to specialized materials and perhaps even a secure location for such an abominable process. And someone with an unparalleled level of audacity. He stood up, walking to the window, staring out at the bustling London street, a stark contrast to the dark theories swirling in his office. Who fits that profile? Who has such a unique blend of expertise and motive among your initial suspects? Evelyn and Armitage quickly listed the names again, their voices quickening as they spoke, listing their ties to the original expedition, their current professions, their known associations. Dr. Alastair Finch, the meticulous curator with a deep knowledge of Egyptian funerary rites. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, the elderly, eccentric heiress, whose family fortunes were built on colonial acquisition and who possessed an almost obsessive fascination with her ancestors' archaeological triumphs and failures. And Mr. Reginald Thorne, the ambitious museum benefactor, whose family had always felt slighted by the original expedition's failure to bring back more significant treasures, despite their financial contributions. Each name was now weighted with new, terrifying possibilities. The initial suspicion, based on opportunity and personal history, now had a chillingly specific set of skills attached to it. Thorne, Evelyn said, her voice rising slightly with urgency. His family was wealthy, but their reputation as collectors often outshone their actual expertise. Reginald, however, spent years studying ancient embalming techniques after a scandalous affair forced him to retreat from public life for a time. He has the motive of vindication for his family's honor, and certainly the knowledge. And Finch, Armitage countered, he has unparalleled access to the museum, to the mummy itself, and a scholarly understanding of the ancient practices that could be twisted for such a purpose. His meticulous nature could conceal a chillingly precise methodology. The room was electric with their rapid-fire deductions, the pace of their speech mirroring the frantic working of their minds. Davies listened, his skepticism slowly eroding, replaced by a grim determination. "We need to set a trap," he declared, turning back from the window, his eyes hard. "A trap that forces our killer into the open, that makes them reveal their hand, and their true connection to this green monstrosity." The words hung in the air, a stark declaration of impending conflict. The quiet investigation was over. The hunt had begun in earnest. Chapter 21. The plan was audacious, risky, and steeped in the very theatricality that seemed to define the murderer's crimes. Inspector Davies, despite his initial reluctance, recognized that conventional police work wasn't yielding the desired results against such a cunning and deeply disturbed mind. If the killer reveled in ancient curses and shocking reveals, then the trap would have to speak their language. The core of the strategy revolved around a public announcement, a new, groundbreaking theory about the green mummy, one that would deliberately provoke the killer. Professor Armitage, with Evelyn by his side, would host a special, late-night press conference at the museum, ostensibly to reveal the true origin of the green coloration. The fabricated story would claim that a recently discovered, highly volatile ancient pigment, unique to this mummy, was res. Evelyn, poised and alert, stood slightly behind him, her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for any anomaly, any face that betrayed too much interest. Inspector Davies, disguised in plain clothes, blended seamlessly into the periphery, his gaze sharp, missing nothing. Armitage began, his voice clear and resonant, but with an underlying current of suppressed excitement, a carefully feigned academic fervor that sold the lie. "Ladies and gentlemen, we stand on the cusp of a truly astonishing discovery regarding the famed green mummy. Our latest analysis, employing cutting-edge spectroscopic techniques, has unveiled a remarkable and previously unknown pigment within the embalming resins." He paused, allowing the dramatic weight of his words to settle, and then continued, his voice picking up a deliberate, slightly quicker pace as he delved into the fabricated scientific details. "This unique substance, which we have provisionally named Chlorose gypsacus, is responsible for the mummy's distinctive green hue. More importantly, we have found that its stability is incredibly fragile, particularly when exposed to modern atmospheric fluctuations. Prolonged exposure could lead to its rapid decay, irreversibly altering the mummy's appearance and potentially destroying invaluable historical data." Evelyn then stepped forward, her voice equally professional, but with an edge of urgency. "To prevent this irreversible damage, we must undertake a delicate stabilization procedure. This requires the mummy to be temporarily moved from its current display into a specially controlled environment within the museum's research annex. This process will begin tonight, immediately following this conference, and will last for precisely 3 hours. During this critical window, the mummy will be in a state of carefully orchestrated vulnerability, in a low-light, temperature-controlled chamber, allowing us to administer the necessary stabilizing agents. Her words were delivered with a conviction that brooked no doubt, yet beneath the surface, the heightened emotion of the situation was almost palpable. She was selling a story of scientific necessity, but her body language, the slight tension in her shoulders, the directness of her gaze, conveyed the stakes involved. The journalists scribbled furiously, their flashes popping. Questions erupted, a cacophony of scientific curiosity and morbid fascination. Armitage and Evelyn fielded them expertly, weaving their elaborate fiction, emphasizing the urgency and the unprecedented nature of the procedure. They stressed the museum's commitment to preserving history, even if it meant temporarily exposing a priceless artifact. The message was clear: the mummy, the killer's silent accomplice or instrument, would be isolated and, for a brief period, unprotected. As the press conference wound down, Davies observed the reactions of the crowd. Most were genuinely intrigued. A few looked skeptical. But one figure, in the back, obscured by the retreating cameras, seemed to linger. Mr. Reginald Thorne. His face was unreadable, but his body language conveyed a stillness, an unnerving focus that Davies immediately flagged. He watched as Thorne finally turned and walked away, his departure almost too casual. Later that night, the museum was quiet, save for the muffled sounds of the security team positioning themselves. The green mummy, carefully transported, now rested on a specially prepared table in the secluded chamber, bathed in a dim, pulsing green light, a further touch of theatricality. Hidden cameras whirred silently. Motion sensors were armed. Davies and his team monitored from a nearby control room, a tense silence broken only by the crackle of their comms. The hours crawled by, thick with anticipation. Every creak, every distant siren, seemed amplified. Evelyn and Armitage were with Davies, their nerves frayed. "This waiting is agonizing," Evelyn whispered, her voice tight, a hint of fear breaking through her professional facade. "It feels as though time itself has slowed, waiting for the trap to spring." Davies, even he, felt a jolt of profound shock ripple through him, momentarily stunning him. The face was not that of a stranger. It was not a shadowy figure from the distant past. It was a face they knew intimately, a face they had trusted, a face that had sat across from them, offering advice and sharing theories. It was Dr. Alastair Finch, the meticulous, seemingly mild-mannered museum curator. His eyes, when they met the glare of the lights and the stunned faces of his captors, were not those of a man caught. They were wild, blazing with a terrifying, unhinged triumph. A chilling, almost inhuman smile spread across his lips, revealing teeth stained faintly green. And then, he spoke, his voice no longer the measured, academic tone they knew, but a rasping, venomous hiss, thick with a horrifying blend of ancient fanaticism and modern madness. You thought you could expose her, desecrate her truth? Foolish mortals! The Guardian awakens. And the Green Plague, it has only just begun. The words hung in the air, a chilling pronouncement of a deeper, more insidious horror than they had ever imagined. The pause that followed his confession was absolute, utterly pregnant with the weight of revelation, the crushing realization of betrayal. The true nature of the Green Mummy, and the identity of the murderer, had finally surfaced, but the implications were far, far more terrifying than any of them could have anticipated. The trap was sprung, but its consequences felt far from over. Chapter 24. The arrest of Dr. Alastair Finch sent shockwaves not just through the museum community, but also through the very foundation of Evelyn and Professor Armitage's understanding of the case. The meticulous curator, the quiet academic, revealed to be the terrifying guardian and the architect of the Green Mummy murders, it was almost too much to comprehend. The subsequent interrogation, a grueling 24-hour marathon, peeled back layers of meticulously crafted deception, revealing a chilling tapestry of obsession, ancient fanaticism, and profound mental instability. Inspector Davies led the interrogation, his pragmatic approach clashing dramatically with Finch's increasingly deranged pronouncements. Finch, stripped of his academic facade, spoke not of guilt or remorse, but of destiny, of a sacred mission, his voice shifting between a measured, almost lyrical tone, and bursts of frenzied, feverish conviction. The initial increase in reading tempo and heightened emotion in dialogue here transitions to a more unsettling, deliberately paced delivery for Finch's monologues, interspersed with Davies's sharp, urgent questions, creating a jarring, disorienting effect that reflects Finch's fractured mind. "The mummy," Finch rasped, his voice still bearing that unsettling, almost reptilian hiss, "she is not merely a vessel. She is the embodiment of the Ancient One's wisdom, their chosen conduit. Her green hue, you see, is not of this world, not of crude pigments. It is the very essence of rejuvenation, of life from death, granted by the rare minerals of the oasis where she was found. A secret knowledge, preserved across millennia, destined only for those worthy enough to wield it. Worthy enough to murder." Davies interjected, his voice sharp, cutting through Finch's poetic ramblings. "Worthy enough to desecrate human lives and turn them into macabre exhibits? You used a modern synthetic dye, Finch, along with ancient minerals. And the bodies, they were fresh. You were remummifying your victims, weren't you?" Finch merely smiled, a terrifyingly serene expression on his face. "A necessary purification, Inspector. The others, those who touched her, those who would expose her to the profanity of your science, they were merely materials. Their sacred blood, infused with the essence of their lineage, provided the final ingredient. The Green Mummy cannot awaken without sustenance, without a renewed connection to those who disturbed her slumber. His eyes glittered with an almost religious fervor, completely detached from the horror of main chapters, 25 to 26. The final reveal. Welcome, dear listener, to the thrilling culmination of our journey, a moment we have all eagerly anticipated, a chapter so rich in revelation and emotional resonance that it demands our deepest, most focused attention. We stand now at the precipice of understanding, poised to unravel the final, bewildering threads of the Green Mummy. This chapter, encompassing the dramatic conclusion of our narrative, promises not only electrifying, long-awaited revelations but also a profound, satisfying sense of closure, a true denouement where all mysteries are laid bare and the dust of conflict finally settles, allowing clarity to emerge from the chaos. Our focus today, our grand design for crafting such an unforgettable ending, revolves around a pivotal, electrifying core concept. The murderer is confronted, the perplexing enigma of the Green Mummy is at long last elucidated, and the entire intricate tapestry of the story triumphantly concludes. Isn't that precisely what every dedicated reader, every attentive listener, truly yearns for at the heart of a compelling mystery, particularly one shrouded in such ancient, eerie mystique? The profound satisfaction of seeing justice meticulously served, of understanding not just the who, but the infinitely more compelling how and the deeply human why, and then gracefully exiting the narrative, leaving behind a pervasive sense of intellectual and emotional completion. This is the moment where lingering shadows finally recede, where the fog of uncertainty lifts, and the blinding, purifying light of truth illuminates even the darkest, most hidden corners of our tale, dispelling all doubt. It's where the scattered pieces, those seemingly disparate clues we've encountered throughout our adventures, those tantalizing fragments that haunted our protagonists and our imagination, finally snap into place with a resounding, undeniable click, revealing a complete and undeniable picture, an intricately woven tapestry of events. Let's delve deeper into the very essence of this dramatic climax, this narrative crescendo, this moment of ultimate reckoning. Imagine, if you will, the scene with vivid clarity. The air is thick, almost viscous, with anticipation, the cumulative weight of unanswered questions pressing down with an almost physical force on our weary, yet determined, heroes. They have chased whispers through ancient, crumbling tombs, deciphered cryptic symbols etched into forgotten artifacts, and faced down treacherous, often unseen, adversaries lurking in the periphery. And now, at this crucial juncture, at the absolute zenith of their quest, they stand face to face with the true architect of their anguish, the mastermind behind the macabre spectacle of the Green Mummy, the individual whose nefarious actions have woven such a complex web of deception, fear, and murder. The confrontation isn't merely a brute physical clash, it's a profound battle of wits, a chilling collision of motives, and ultimately, an unwavering, desperate demand for truth, for understanding, for retribution. The murderer, cornered and irrevocably exposed, with their every escape route sealed off and their lies unmasked, has nowhere left to run, nowhere left to hide. Their carefully constructed facade, built brick by brick on lies, misdirection, and cunning, crumbles under the relentless pressure of inquiry and irrefutable evidence, revealing the chilling, unvarnished reality beneath. And within that stunning revelation lies the undeniable key to the Green Mummy itself, its horrifying purpose, its darkest secret, its eerie, unforgettable significance, all finally unveiled in a torrent of words. This isn't just a simple, perfunctory confession, it's an unveiling, a grand, all-encompassing explanation that meticulously recontextualizes everything we thought we knew about the world of the Green Mummy, transforming ambiguity into crystalline, sometimes devastating, clarity. The story then, like a perfectly orchestrated, complex symphony, moves inexorably towards its final, harmonious, yet deeply moving chords, leaving. When the villain finally breaks, when the unvarnished truth spills out in a torrent, it offers a profound, almost spiritual release, a mental and emotional unburdening that is deeply satisfying. It not only validates our anxieties and rewards our intellectual investment in the mystery but also confirms our own deductions and suspicions, making us feel an active, integral part of the unraveling. Secondly, it plays on our primal, deeply ingrained fear of the unknown, a fear that has plagued humanity since the dawn of time. Villains, by their very nature, thrive in shadows, their motives obscured, their actions perplexing and seemingly illogical, almost supernatural. When they step, or are forced to step, into the blinding light of truth, even if that light is self-illumined by their own frantic words, the fear often intensifies dramatically before it finally dissipates, replaced by a different kind of dread. We are forced to confront the monstrous logic, the twisted humanity that lurks beneath the surface, and it can be terrifyingly, sickeningly compelling to witness. Thirdly, it speaks to the fundamental power dynamic that has defined the conflict throughout the narrative. The villain, for a brief, glorious, and perverse moment, reclaims a form of control, not by escaping justice, but by shaping the narrative of their own downfall, by presenting their version of events, however distorted or self-serving, however riddled with self-justification. For a short, breathless time, they command the stage, holding the audience captive with their final performance, their last desperate act. We are compelled to listen, to understand the depths of their depravity or the tragic flaws that led them to such extreme, unforgivable acts. This moment, paradoxically, humanizes the monster, not to excuse them, but to make their actions horrifyingly comprehensible within their own twisted, internal logic. It's the pivotal moment where the abstract, nebulous evil becomes concrete, a person with a history, with desires, with a terrifyingly rationalized rationale that makes our skin crawl with a chilling recognition. Practically speaking, how do we, as storytellers and narrators, meticulously achieve this level of dramatic, breathless intensity within an audiobook, transforming mere words into an electrifying experience? It's a precise and meticulous orchestration of several interdependent elements, each vital to the overall effect. Firstly, consider the pacing of the delivery. Short, sharp, staccato sentences can brilliantly mimic a racing heart, a mind working frantically to piece together fragmented thoughts or to deliver a long rehearsed but finally unleashed explanation that can no longer be contained. Strategic pauses, brief moments of profound silence, can amplify the crushing weight of what's just been said or build unbearable anticipation for what's about to be revealed next. Imagine a villain pausing, a cruel, self-satisfied smile playing on their lips, their eyes gleaming with a manic gleam, before delivering the most damning, most ingenious detail of their meticulously crafted scheme. This isn't merely reading words from a page, it's inhabiting the very, raw, visceral moment of exposure, living it in real time. Secondly, the voice acting is absolutely paramount. It demands an extraordinary range of vocal expression, a true performance. The narrator might seamlessly shift from a low, menacing, almost predatory whisper that barely registers, to a sudden, almost hysterical outburst of rage, triumph, or even a chilling, distorted glee that sends shivers down the spine. The volume might rise and fall dramatically, mimicking the villain's fluctuating emotions, the speed of delivery accelerating uncontrollably as the villain gets caught up in the fervor of their own monologue, perhaps slowing down for excruciating emphasis on a particularly dark or shocking detail that must be savored. We might hear a subtle, almost imperceptible tremor of desperation, a hint of madness simmering just beneath the surface, or a cold, calculated precision that. These moments allow the characters, and by extension the deeply invested audience, to collectively breathe, to process the immense emotional weight of what has transpired, and to find profound solace in fundamental human connection. They are slower, more intimate, deliberately focusing on the subtle shifts in body language, the unspoken promises exchanged in a glance, the tender touches that convey a universe of meaning far beyond spoken words. The frantic, often desperate energy of the chase and the dramatic reveal gives way to the gentle, comforting embrace of love and companionship, a welcome balm for the weary soul, a period of profound rest and emotional healing. Psychologically speaking, this softening of tone is not merely an aesthetic choice or a narrative convention, it's an absolutely vital component of emotional processing, catharsis, and ultimately, narrative satisfaction. After an acute period of sustained stress, pervasive fear, and intense intellectual strain, the brain and body instinctively seek equilibrium, a return to a state of calm and safety. The romantic wrap-up, therefore, provides this necessary, gentle descent from the intense, dizzying peak of conflict. It allows for the healthy release of accumulated tension in a constructive, emotionally resonant, and deeply human way. It taps into our inherent, fundamental human desire for connection, for belonging, for unconditional love, and for a shared, stable future. When we witness characters who have endured so much personal suffering and collective ordeal finally finding a measure of peace and, crucially, finding each other, it offers a profound sense of hope, reassurance, and validation that good can still prevail even in the face of profound evil. It powerfully signifies that even in a world capable of such profound darkness and malevolence as vividly evidenced by the villain's horrifying actions, there is still an enduring light, still immense beauty, and still the indomitable power of human affection to overcome despair. It satisfies the audience's deep investment not just in the overarching plot, but, more importantly, in the characters as individuals. We've watched them grow, suffer, stumble, and ultimately overcome. Now we desperately want to see them thrive, to find their personal happiness and fulfillment after their ordeal. This subtle yet profound shift in tone eloquently signals that the external conflict, the monstrous threat, has been definitively resolved, and now the narrative's focus gracefully moves to the internal, intimate landscapes of our beloved heroes, allowing them to heal, to reflect, and to tentatively look towards a brighter future together, perhaps even planning shared adventures or a quieter, more peaceful life away from the shadows. It's the collective emotional exhale after holding our breath for what felt like an eternity, a warm, comforting return to the embrace of human intimacy after the chilling, isolating cold of confrontation and danger. So, how do we practically apply this crucial softening of tone in our narration and script, ensuring its authenticity and maximum emotional impact? Firstly, the pacing of the narration must slow down considerably, almost to a meditative rhythm. The rapid-fire delivery, the heightened urgency of the confession, now gracefully gives way to a more deliberate, thoughtful, and measured cadence. Sentences become longer, more flowing, allowing ample space for introspection, reflection, and nuanced emotional expression. Pauses become gentle, contemplative breaths, rather than moments of suspense or dramatic tension. Secondly, the voice acting undergoes a dramatic and essential transformation. The narrator's voice should become noticeably warmer, gentler, more intimate, almost as if sharing a precious secret with the listener. We're transitioning from the public spectacle of justice to the private, sacred realm of the heart. Volume might decrease slightly, becoming more hushed, more personal, more inviting, drawing the listener closer. The pitch might become softer, lower, conveying te. It's the unspoken, deeply personal conversation between the narrative and the listener's soul, an invitation to continue processing and reflecting long after the sound fades. From a profound psychological standpoint, music is an incredibly potent emotional amplifier and an essential tool for emotional processing, bypassing the conscious mind and speaking directly to our feelings. A melancholic but ultimately resolved musical cue at the end of a chapter or an entire story serves multiple vital and interconnected functions. Firstly, it provides a crucial, gentle emotional bridge, allowing the audience to transition gracefully from the immediate, intense events of the narrative to their own personal reflection and contemplation. It prevents an abrupt, often jarring and unsatisfying cutoff, instead offering a gentle, comfortable landing, a soft place to rest. Secondly, the masterful blend of melancholy and resolution is particularly effective and deeply satisfying because it eloquently acknowledges the full, rich spectrum of emotions inherent in a complex, human story. Melancholy respectfully acknowledges the sacrifices made, the pain endured, the innocence lost, or even the villains who, however evil, might have possessed a tragic, understandable dimension to their downfall, adding a layer of depth. It's not a denial of the darkness and suffering that was present throughout the narrative, rather, it's an acceptance of it. Resolution, however, powerfully affirms the triumph, the justice, the hope, and the promise of new beginnings, reinforcing the idea that good can prevail. It reassures us that despite the encroaching shadows, light has, against all odds, ultimately prevailed. This nuanced, sophisticated emotional blend perfectly mirrors our own complex human experiences in life, where profound joy often coexists, sometimes uncomfortably, with a touch of sadness, and victory sometimes comes at a significant, indelible cost. It creates a pervasive sense of profound closure that feels utterly honest and deeply earned, rather than simplistic, facile, or overly saccharine. It satisfies our innate human need for emotional processing, allowing us to absorb the full, lingering impact of the story's ending and carry it with us as a cherished memory. It's the final whispered, unspoken promise that things will, indeed, eventually be all right, even if the scars of the past remain as indelible reminders of the journey and the challenges overcome. Practically applying this essential musical fade-out requires the most careful and artistic consideration, a true collaboration between sound and story. Firstly, the musical choice itself is absolutely paramount. We're looking for a meticulously composed piece that skillfully blends minor and major keys, perhaps starting with a slightly somber, reflective, even yearning tone that gradually, subtly introduces elements of hope, upliftment, and eventual peace, creating an emotional arc within the music itself. Instruments that evoke both profound sadness and transcendent beauty, such as a solo cello or a tender piano, gently weaving into a richer, more expansive string ensemble, could be incredibly effective in creating this nuanced emotional landscape, providing texture and depth. Imagine a mournful yet undeniably hopeful melody that speaks simultaneously to the quiet sorrow of past events and the radiant, hopeful promise of a new dawn, a future reborn from the ashes of conflict. Secondly, the precise timing of the music's introduction is absolutely crucial for maximum impact and a seamless transition. It shouldn't blast in abruptly or feel out of place, disrupting the emotional flow. Instead, it should begin subtly, almost imperceptibly, as the narrator delivers the very last, lingering lines of the romantic wrap-up, acting as an initially understated underscore, enhancing rather than overpowering. Then, slowly, gracefully, and with increasing emotional weight, it takes center stage, building just slightly in emotional intensity and presence before fading gently, almost like a sigh, into absolute 7-day action plan. Welcome back, my dear listeners. We've journeyed through the labyrinthine corridors of Victorian London and the ancient mysteries of Egypt with Fergus Hume's The Green Mummy, a tale rich with suspense, intrigue, and the fascinating allure of the unknown. But the experience of a great book, especially a classic mystery, doesn't truly end when the final page is turned, or the last word spoken. In fact, that's often just the beginning of a deeper, more enriching engagement. This chapter is dedicated to precisely that, a comprehensive 7-day action plan, designed to transform your passive listening into an active exploration of classic mystery tropes and, more importantly, a refinement of your own critical thinking skills. This isn't just about dissecting the Green Mummy itself, but using it as a springboard to understand the very fabric of storytelling, the psychology behind effective plot construction, and the cultural currents that shape our narratives. Think of this as your personal detective training, a journey where you become the astute observer, the astute analyst, moving beyond merely following the plot to understanding the mechanics of its construction, the historical echoes it contains, and the psychological tricks it plays on our minds. Have you ever finished a story and wished you could peel back its layers, understand its genius, or perhaps even its subtle flaws? This plan is your invitation to do just that, to truly engage with the text and the broader world of literature in a way that will deepen your appreciation for every book you encounter moving forward. It's about building a bridge between the story world and your own analytical mind, fostering a richer, more interactive relationship with the narratives that captivate us. Let's begin with a focused approach to post-listen engagement. Day 1 and Day 2, mentally review the clues and list the red herrings that tricked you. This initial 2-day immersion is crucial for sharpening your powers of observation and deduction. After all, the essence of a good mystery lies in the careful scattering of clues and the artful planting of misdirect ions, doesn't it? As you listened to The Green Mummy, you were undoubtedly presented with a myriad of details, some shining like beacons pointing towards the truth, others shimmering deceptively, leading you down garden paths of false suspicion. For these 2 days, your mission is to revisit those moments, not by re-listening to the entire book just yet, but by engaging in a focused mental recall exercise. Consider, for a moment, the masterful works of Agatha Christie. Think of Hercule Poirot, perhaps in a novel like The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, where the narrator himself is revealed to be the culprit. Christie was a genius at laying out all the clues fairly, often right in plain sight, yet simultaneously weaving such compelling red herrings and exploiting our inherent biases that the twist, when it arrived, felt both shocking and inevitable. Or picture the intricate deductions of Sherlock Holmes as he unravels a seemingly impossible crime, pointing out details that were always there, but which our minds, accustomed to focusing on the obvious, simply overlooked. Hume, too, employs similar techniques. He introduces characters with suspicious motives, creates coincidences that seem too perfect, and allows certain narratives to dominate, subtly guiding your attention away from the real culprit or the true significance of a particular object or interaction. Why does this exercise matter psychologically? It's profoundly beneficial for developing critical thinking and metacognition, which is essentially thinking about your own thinking. When you actively review the clues and red herrings, you're training your brain to distinguish between relevant information and distracting noise. You're becoming more aware of how your mind processes information, how it forms hypotheses, and how susceptible it can be to suggestion or confirmation bias. We all have a tendency to latch onto an initial theory and then selectively interpret new information to support it, rather than remaining open to alternatives. By identifying where the author deliberately exploited these cognitive shortcuts, you learn to recognize them in other contexts, whether it's another book, a news report, or even a personal decision. This practice hones your analytical lens, making you a more discerning consumer of information in all aspects of life, not just within the pages of a mystery novel. It encourages intellectual humility, recognizing that even with all the information available, our initial interpretations can be flawed, and that's perfectly okay. The goal is to refine our method of arriving at conclusions. So, how do you practically apply this? Find a quiet time, perhaps with your favorite hot beverage, and allow your mind to wander back through the narrative of The Green Mummy. Don't pressure yourself to remember every single detail. Instead, focus on the moments that felt significant. First, mentally. You might discover fascinating insights into how the popular imagination conflated scientific discovery with supernatural dread. Seek out short summaries or even excerpts from other mummy-themed works of the period. Compare the portrayal of mummies, ancient curses, and Egyptian mysticism in The Green Mummy with what you learn from your research. Are there common tropes? Does Hume subvert any expectations? How does his interpretation of ancient Egyptian power compare to that of Stoker or Doyle? Consider the specific details, such as the significance of the scarab, the type of curse invoked, or the motivations behind disturbing the mummy. Reflect on how a contemporary listener would have experienced this story, armed with the prevailing cultural narratives of their time. This deep dive into historical context will immeasurably enrich your understanding and appreciation of Hume's narrative choices. Day 5 and Day 6, analyze the pacing of Fergus Hume's narrative and character archetypes. Having looked at both the internal workings of the plot and the external cultural influences, our next 2 days will focus on the author's craft itself, the structural choices Hume made in storytelling. This involves dissecting the narrative's rhythm and flow, as well as examining the recurring character types he employs, allowing us to appreciate the architecture beneath the tale. Think about the varied pacing you encounter in other classic novels. Compare, for instance, the intricate, often slow-burn psychological suspense of Wilkie Collins in The Woman in White, where tension builds through epistolary narratives and prolonged revelations, to the more brisk, action-oriented pace often found in early detective stories like some of Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes adventures. Hume, like many authors of his time, had a particular style of pacing. Some passages might feel expansive, dedicating significant time to description or philosophical rumination, while others rush headlong into dramatic confrontations or startling discoveries. Did you notice moments where the narrative seemed to drag, perhaps during lengthy explanations, and other moments where you felt utterly breathless, unable to pause the audio? Understanding these shifts allows us to appreciate how an author manipulates our emotional response. Furthermore, consider the character archetypes that populate The Green Mummy. Classic mysteries, particularly those from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, often feature a recurring cast: the brilliant yet eccentric detective, perhaps a precursor to Poirot or Holmes; the loyal, often less perceptive, sidekick who serves as the audience's surrogate; the mysterious stranger with a dark past; the damsel in distress; the bumbling yet well-meaning local inspector; the villain whose true nature is hidden until the climax. How does Hume utilize these archetypes? Does he play them straight, or does he subtly subvert them, adding layers of unexpected complexity to familiar roles? For example, is there a character who initially seems to be the villain but is ultimately revealed as a victim, or vice versa? From a psychological perspective, analyzing pacing and character archetypes is vital for understanding how authors manipulate our engagement and expectations. Pacing is a powerful tool for controlling emotional intensity. A slower pace can build suspense, allowing dread to simmer, or it can provide moments of reflection and character development. A rapid pace can create urgency, excitement, or a sense of chaos. By recognizing these techniques, you become more attuned to how narrative rhythm affects your own emotional state as a listener. When you identify the common character archetypes, you begin to understand the shorthand authors use to quickly establish personalities and roles. It's a form of cognitive priming. We instinctively associate certain traits and expectations with a brilliant detective or a femme fatale. Learning to recognize these archetypes allows you to appreciate when an author cleverly adheres to them. Praviti. The act of sharing your insights also builds confidence in your analytical abilities, fostering a sense of accomplishment and intellectual growth. For your practical application on this final day, start by jotting down your overall impressions of The Green Mummy. What resonated most with you? Were there any aspects that disappointed you? Then, focus specifically on the climax and resolution. Was it a satisfying conclusion to the mystery? Did it provide adequate closure for all the plot lines and character arcs? Was the revelation of the culprit or the solution to the mystery believable and well supported by the clues or red herrings you identified earlier in the week? If you have access to a local book club, suggest The Green Mummy as your next read and lead the discussion, sharing your insights from the past 6 days. If not, consider posting a short, thoughtful review on an online platform like Goodreads, a personal blog, or a forum dedicated to classic literature. Alternatively, simply have a focused discussion with a friend or family member who enjoys mysteries or is open to hearing about your literary adventures. Formulate a few open-ended questions based on your week's activities to guide the conversation, perhaps asking what red herring fooled you the most, or how did the mummy mania influence your reading of the story. The act of sharing and discussing will not only solidify your own understanding but also open up new avenues of thought and appreciation for this classic tale. And so, we bring our 7-day action plan to a close. This journey, from dissecting clues and red herrings, to contextualizing the novel within its historical tapestry, analyzing the author's craft, and finally, articulating your insights, is far more than just a deep dive into one book. It's a foundational exercise in intellectual engagement, a pathway to becoming a more discerning, thoughtful, and appreciative consumer of all narratives. You've honed your critical thinking skills, deepened your understanding of literary techniques, and connected with the rich history that shapes our stories. We hope this structured approach has not only enriched your experience of The Green Mummy but has also equipped you with tools that will serve you well in all your future literary explorations. May your future listening and reading always be filled with discovery, intrigue, and a sharpened sense of understanding. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening adventure. Summary. And so, we arrive at the culmination of our journey, a moment for reflection as we look back on the intricate tapestry woven throughout The Green Mummy. What an extraordinary adventure it has been, hasn't it? As we draw this particular narrative to a close, our task is to recap not just the events, but the very thematic core that pulsed beneath every thrilling chapter, and to truly appreciate the profoundly satisfying resolution to the perplexing murder that set everything in motion. Our thematic journey, if you recall, began steeped in the seemingly tranquil, almost idyllic setting of a quiet British village, a place where tradition and routine usually held sway. Yet, beneath that veneer, we quickly discovered a brewing storm of human frailties, greed, ambition, and the dangerous allure of ancient power. The initial tragedy wasn't just a death, it was a rupture in that calm facade, exposing the hidden currents of envy and forgotten legacies. The narrative skillfully navigated the complex interplay between seemingly disparate worlds, the state academic circles, the shadowy underworld of artifact smugglers, and the echoes of a distant, ancient civilization. It explored how the pursuit of knowledge can become corrupted by avarice, how history can be plundered, and how justice, though sometimes delayed, ultimately seeks its rightful path. The resolution of the murder, therefore, wasn't merely the unveiling of a culprit, it was the meticulous untangling of these very threads, a comprehensive addressing of every moral and ethical dilemma presented along the way, leaving us with a powerful sense of closure and an understanding that every secret, no matter how deeply buried, will eventually surface. Let's delve deeper into this remarkable journey, from that initial, seemingly isolated tragedy in a sleepy village to the breathtaking, thrilling climax that brought all the disparate pieces together. Do you remember the initial shock, the quiet horror that rippled through the community when the first body was discovered, inextricably linked to the enigmatic Green Mummy? What began as a local mystery quickly escalated, pulling our intrepid investigators into a whirlwind of false leads, tantalizing clues, and ever-present danger. The tension built exquisitely, brick by brick, from hushed conversations in dimly lit studies to perilous chases through shadowy landscapes. This escalation is the hallmark of truly great storytelling, isn't it? Think of classic mysteries like Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, where a family curse in a desolate moor gradually unfurls into a terrifying, very human plot. Psychologically, this narrative arc matters immensely because it mirrors our own lives. We encounter small problems that often snowball into larger challenges, demanding our full attention and ingenuity. It provides a vicarious experience of problem solving, offering the catharsis of seeing complexity resolved into clarity. For you, the listener, the practical application here is to recognize how stories, like life itself, build momentum. Pay attention to those early, seemingly minor details. They are often the keystones of the later grand revelation. Understanding this structure enhances your appreciation for storytelling and can even help you analyze situations in your own life by tracing causes and effects from their quiet beginnings to their dramatic conclusions. And then, there's the utterly unique and captivating twist, the profound integration of a South American mummy within what, on the surface, presented itself as a classic British mystery. How truly brilliant was that? Instead of a predictable Egyptian artifact, we were confronted with a relic from a different continent, a distinct culture, carrying its own set of ancient beliefs, legends, and perhaps even curses. This wasn't merely a change of scenery, it was a complete subversion of expectation, transforming a familiar genre into something entirely fresh and intellectually stimulating. It injected a vibrant, often unsettling, cultural richness that broadened. We leave this particular narrative with a sense of completion, yet also with the lingering echoes of ancient rites and modern misdeeds, a testament to the enduring human fascination with the past and its persistent influence on our present. Thank you for joining me on this enthralling journey. Call to action. And so, we arrive at the threshold of our next chapter, not of the story itself, for the intricate mystery of the Green Mummy has now unveiled its final, thrilling secrets, but rather, the chapter of our shared journey. This moment, dear listener, is a unique opportunity, a chance for us to connect beyond the narrative and to truly engage with the vibrant world of audiobooks and the community that breathes life into them. We're here to discuss what comes next for you, how your voice can shape the experiences of others, and how we can continue to explore the literary landscapes together. This isn't merely a conclusion, it's an invitation, a call to action designed to enhance your listening experience and enrich the entire audiobook ecosystem. Your participation is the secret ingredient that transforms a solitary listen into a shared adventure, fostering a sense of connection and discovery for countless future listeners. First, let us talk about the power of your opinion, a truly invaluable resource. Have you ever pondered the immense influence of a simple rating or a thoughtfully penned review? We are now at the point where I humbly, yet eagerly, ask you, our cherished listener, to consider leaving a rating and review for The Green Mummy on your preferred audiobook platform. Imagine yourself searching for your next captivating listen, scrolling through an endless parade of titles. What genuinely captures your eye? What makes you pause and click? More often than not, it's the authentic feedback from fellow listeners, that reassuring chorus of voices that have ventured before you, sharing their insights and enthusiasm. This is where your voice becomes a beacon. To truly understand why this matters, let's step into a real-world scenario. Picture yourself having just finished a particularly exquisite meal at a new, charming restaurant. The flavors lingered, the atmosphere enchanted, and the service was impeccable. Wouldn't you feel an almost irresistible urge to share that delightful experience with your friends? Perhaps you'd even feel compelled to leave a positive note for the chef or a glowing online review, not just to laud their efforts, but to guide others to that same culinary joy. It's precisely the same sentiment here. Your feedback is not just a pat on the back for the creators, it's a vital signpost for those who follow in your footsteps. From a psychological perspective, this act of reviewing is deeply rooted in our innate desire for social proof and reciprocity. When you share your positive experience, you provide social proof to potential listeners, validating the quality and appeal of the audiobook. This helps them overcome the initial hesitation and invest their precious time. Furthermore, there's a subconscious sense of reciprocity at play. You've received enjoyment from this story, and contributing a review is a simple, yet powerful, way to give back. It also taps into our human need to contribute and be part of a larger community, knowing that your voice helps shape the choices and experiences of others. It gives meaning to your listen beyond your own enjoyment. Practically speaking, the steps are delightfully straightforward. Simply open your audiobook application, navigate to The Green Mummy within your library, and look for the section dedicated to ratings and reviews. You'll usually see a set of stars, perhaps from 1 to 5. A quick tap on the star rating that reflects your experience is a wonderful start. If you feel inspired, a few descriptive words about what you enjoyed, perhaps the intricate plot, the engaging narration, or the captivating characters, can make all the difference. Even a short sentence, like a truly intriguing classic mystery, is incredibly valuable. Your effort, however small, casts a wide ripple effect. Now, as the final echoes of The Green Mummy's thrilling conclusion gently fade, what enthralling adventure awaits you next? For those of you who found yourselves utterly captivated by Fergus Hume's masterful ability to weave a complex web of intrigue and suspense, I have Thank you for listening to this audiobook. If you found value, meaning, or inspiration in this journey, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter. Your support helps us bring more timeless classics to life. See you in the next reading.